your height, your shape, your color. None of these things matter. None of those things are present in the moment. You only get to know this person via conversation. You get to know the person without that very forefront initial animalistic evaluation that our brains do a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And over time, it really lets you truly know someone on a almost maskless level. You know, in our lives and everywhere we go throughout life, we have a mask and we have the different faces that we show people. And in a way, our avatars are our own mask that we show people. But VR lets you get to know somebody on a truer level.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sweet Talking Podcast with your host, Nepherti. And I believe this is going to be episode 22, I believe. But, you know, things can change. But I believe it is. Whether it is or not, I'm just glad that you're here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Before we get started, hey there. This is me, Nepherti, here, and I am making a video about my Patreon that many of you may or may not know about. YouTube is still hitting me with copyright infringements. Obviously, I want to have music on my videos on YouTube, so they continue to hit me with copyright infringements. I am now affiliate on Twitch, so I do get support on Twitch now, so that has changed. But at the end of the day, Patreon still gives a larger cut. So at the end of the day, I want to just re-inform you guys. Many of you who may or may not know, you can take a look at my Patreon right now actually, at patreon.com/Nepherti. It'll be right at the bottom underneath my boobs. And basically it's a great way for you to support me aside from, you know, Twitch. And that's pretty much all. Patreon is a great way for you to support me in a more direct way and also allows me to directly give back to you guys. I do give updates relatively regularly. So if joining me on the Patreon is something that you're interested in, you can do so starting for just $1. There are tiers in which I get to spend an hour with you one-on-one. It could be either on Discord or in VRChat. Whichever one you'd want, that's what we do. And I also do voice recordings also. There's the head pet tier, which is $1, the nuzzle tier, which is $5, the huggle tier, which is $10, the snuggle tier, which is for $20, and the uwu tier, which is for $30. So honestly, I didn't want to spend too much time on this video. You know, I'm just kind of here, just being comfortable, whatever, but I just wanted to thank everyone who has already been a part of the Patreon up to this point. I truly want to give you my thanks for supporting me and allowing me to do what I do and, you know, live in this nice cozy room, largely free of most noise, and just be able to create things that I really enjoy creating. And so I'm so grateful to everyone who has been a part of my Patreon up to this point, and I hope that anyone who is interested in more tangibly supporting me, this is a great way to do it. I'm looking to revamp Distortio, or DTX for short, and I'm also looking to do a little bit of other content. So I really am looking forward to the future. I'm so excited about what we're doing, and I look forward to what we can create together. See you next time. As you can see, we do have another guest here, and it is none other than the homie, Dunnythicc. He is in fact the homie.
The homiest of homies. The thickest of homies.
Thickest of homies. Damn
the
right.
Bluest of them all.
Indeed, yeah. And him and I are going to be having a conversation tonight, so yeah, I really would appreciate it if you stuck around to the end. We're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects tonight, so I'm really looking forward to it, and I hope you all are too as well. So, let's get to it. So, Dunny, my guy, literally one of the first people I met when I first entered the VRChat Rave scene. Literally the first dude that I met. It's crazy. It's probably been just about a year since then. Since we met.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been cool. It's been really great to just kind of just be a part of the community and get to know you. Like whenever we have a chance to talk, it's always been super interesting whenever we've had a chance to chat. So how are you doing tonight? As we get started tonight, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's been pretty eventful lately. A lot going on, but good. I remember that first night, actually. I do remember the very first night, and I think I remember that our biggest part of the conversation was teaching you the half-body thoughty twerking.
Yes, yes.
Passing on the ways, right? We were half-body thoughty twerking at a Saturday rave, so I had to pass on the good movement. Everybody's got to know it.
That is true. That is true. You introduced me to the half body thoughty, and I never forget my roots. But you know, now that I've got legs, it means we've come a pretty long way. Obviously through the kindness of other people, through the awesomeness of the people in my life and most likely in yours, and here we are. About a year later, able to have a conversation, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'd like to kind of start off with the basics. So who is Dunny? What are you about? What do you enjoy doing? What makes you who you are? Just a kind of a basic introduction about yourself to kind of get the ball rolling, so people who don't know who you are can get to know you.
So I think a lot of people who know me, who know Dunny, know the party Dunny. They know the white girl waisted woo boy Dunny at the rave scene and such. Not many people usually get to spend a lot of time with me on a daily basis or get to know me on that kind of level. So I'd say there's a lot more to unpack there than most people would think. I have lived a lot of different lives and done a lot of different jobs. I've been to a lot of different countries. I've picked up different languages along the way. I've had complete and total drastic 180s in life more than once. There's definitely a lot there. If I had to sum it up though and try to keep it short, sweet, and simple, the vast majority of my adult life was actually as a soldier in the military. I was on active duty in the Army for about 10 years. Closer to a decade. It was 9 and some change, but that really was a very, very formative time in my life. That's where a lot of no fail, no lose kind of mentality came from. And pretty much anything that I have ever had interest in or ever done from that point forward, I have to do it as well as I possibly can. Like I can't get into something and it just be casual. I have to understand something on the most fundamental and intrinsic level and do it as well as I possibly can in anything that I do. And a lot of that came from that military time of my life. But after the military, I hopped around to a bunch of different random jobs right after I got out because believe it or not, when you get out of the military, nobody in corporate America needs you to like invade a small country or something. So, you know, my skill set was kind of gone at that point. I had to learn some new skills. So when I first immediately got out of the military, I was actually working in executive protections, which is the fancy corporate term for armed escorts and bodyguards and stuff like that. And I was working for this big oil tycoon at the time. And I was up in their offices for this dumb meeting, and I remember walking around the corner, and we were in this corner office, and there was this guy, and he had this, he had his degrees, and he had his other stuff on the wall, but he had this one big certificate up on the wall that said certified ethical hacker. And I was like, no shit, that's a thing. And I remember talking to him, I was like, are you hacking? He was like, yeah, that's what I do. I hack for this company. And I was like, I didn't know that was a thing at all. And so I had always grown up being a nerd. I had always, you know, played video games, been on computers, been at LAN parties growing up, stuff like that. So I was like, I love tech stuff. And so I looked into it, and that's when I decided to work into a career in cybersecurity. So for work and my day job and stuff like that, many years later, that's actually what I do. And I hold that same certificate now, among a bunch of others. But cybersecurity and hacking and web app penetration testing and doing stuff like that is kind of what I do on the day-to-day. And then when I got into VR, I already had some Blender skill set from doing cosplay and 3D printing and stuff before, so it just kind of all transitioned over really quickly into me being able to start making my own stuff and kind of looking the way I want to get to be, you know, big blue demon and everything. Nothing looked the way I wanted it to look, so decided to make something for myself. And throughout all of those things, it seems like every time I find a new hobby or something else, I just dive completely beyond far into it all the way as much as possible until I can't get it wrong, which I still get it wrong all the time.
Wow. Yeah. That's all very, very fascinating. I always knew that you were in the military. I mean, aside from you putting it on your jacket, like emblazing it on your jacket, essentially. I knew that you had military experience, but I never really had a sense of how long you had been doing that, or if you were still doing it. I feel like when I met you a year ago, that you were still in the military. Was that the case?
No, I got out around 2015, so it's been quite a while since I got out. I was just a little bit too young to be a part of the big invasion and when everything very first started after 9/11. But, and I mean, this dates me, this shows how old I am, but I was in high school when 9/11 happened. I remember sitting in class in high school when 9/11 happened, and that was pretty much a concrete cement decision at that point in time. That pretty much the entire, I do not ever wish anything like that would ever happen again, but I do relish and miss that time because that was one of the few times where it seems like the entirety of our nation of people were really unified in love for one. Yeah. So that was a very easy decision at the time that I needed to go do something.
Would you say that may have been the first time that you felt a sense of purpose in your life? I mean, you were like a geek at that time, you know, usual like gamer nerd, and everything. So... I was still a weirdo. I was definitely still a weirdo. I was a huge geek and nerd and everything, but I was still varsity lettered on the football team. Oh? A big dumb jock dumbass at the same time. Nice. Yeah.
But
get someone who can do both.
Exactly. You gotta game, but you gotta be fit too. You know, True. You gotta live your life, enjoy every facet of life.
Absolutely.
But it really was. The military is an extreme sense of purpose, and honestly, ever since I got out of the military, it took me a long time. And I mean, it probably took me a couple years to readjust, not just to say civilian life or anything like that, but it took me a long time to make the decision that work is just work. Work does nothing more than pay my bills and allow me to live how I want to live. And as soon as I accepted that's what work was, that work it doesn't have to be a calling, then everything got a lot easier. Because after the military, it's extremely hard to find purpose in your work.
So basically, you have been in the military. You were inspired by the events of 9/11. That motivated you to make that jump into that line of I guess that it's a kind of a life choice going into the military. And I'm assuming that it was just the motivation of being inspired by, I guess I wouldn't say inspired by, like, well, I guess what would you call it? Like what would you call it as like your experience to be, to what pushed you to do it and to be in the military for 10 years, no less?
Well, for starters, I mean, my dad was military as well, right? So I grew up as, dad was my hero, and my dad was in the Rangers. He was in the 75th Ranger Regiment, and he was all Billy Badass back in his day and in his prime and stuff. And so it was always an idea that was kicking around in my mind. And I'll be perfectly honest, I was a scrappy kid. I was always more ready to fight than I was to talk anything out.
Really?
I was always more of a scrappier kid and a fighter. And I spent a long time in martial arts that helped me kind of calm down and have a good bit more discipline. But I think I don't know if you can really say that some things are genetic, but I really do think there's a certain level of things that are genetic and in your family and in your bloodline, and just having generation after generation after generation of your family not only be in the military but be in combat arms and just generally be fighters, so to speak, or to be militant in a way. And it settled really well with me. It worked perfectly fine. But 9/11 was, like I said, definitely an absolute moment in my life where I was like, well, if there was ever a possible idea, it's now the idea. That was what I was going to go do. And I think, the reason why I spent 10 years doing it is I love doing it. I mean, there's just nothing on the planet like it. There is no job in the world that gives you that level of camaraderie and friendship and brotherhood and just insane bonding with friends. And there's that meme that it's trauma bonding. Like, yeah, it is trauma bonding. But like I talked to a guy today, and we were just messaging and stuff, and then we played Destiny online yesterday together. And I met that guy after my first deployment in Iraq. One day at like 5 o'clock in the morning. He was a brand new guy to the unit, and he just so happened at first morning formation in PT, he ran up and he just fell in with my recon team. And I remember looking down the line and yelling at him, saying some shit that I won't repeat on stream. And he looked at me like, what the fuck, dude? It is 5 o'clock in the morning. Holy shit. And he was like, my bad. And in short, it was basically something along the lines of, get the fuck out of my fire team. I don't know who you are. And he ran off. But point of the story is, that was 17 years ago, and we still talk daily. You do not find the level of bonding and camaraderie anywhere else. I've never worked anywhere in my life, and I'm like, yeah, I totally want to hang out with all of y'all after all this shit's done, and I leave this job like I did the army.
Yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah, there's just something really, really insane about relying on your best friends right next to you, and your life is in their hands and their life's in your hands. And I know that sounds really machismo, and it sounds really niche, and it sounds really corny, but it's true. I trust you not to fuck up, and you trust me not to fuck up. And that really matters. That discipline really matters, and we trust each other to do that. And it really, truly is life or death situations many times. And that kind of bonding and that care for each other just doesn't come anywhere else. So honestly, I think the reason why I stayed in for as long as I did is because of that, because of the people, because of everybody in my units that I was in, and the time spent suffering and bonding and training with everybody.
Was it a perfect fit? Like, I'm assuming you had basic training. I don't know very much about, the procedures of being accepted into a military situation, but did it just kind of fit you like a glove when you first jumped into it? Like from day one? Yeah, it did. I fast tracked pretty hardcore when I first joined. So essentially you have your basic training, and basic training is, at least for the Army, in the Army it's different. You have two types of basic training. For the Army, if you're going to be in the combat arms, like if you're going to be in the infantry, you're going to be a grunt, or you're going to be a tanker, or you're going to be, something that is directly combat. You have what's called OSUT, or one station unit training, and you go do your basic training there. If you're going to be anything else, you're going to be what's known as a soft skill or a support skill, or anything else such as like mechanics or cooks or clerks or radar or anything logistic or anything else that's not combat. They go through a two-part phase where they go to what's known as BCT, or basic combat training,
So they go to their initial basic training, which is like 9 weeks, and then they'll go to their AIT, which is advanced individual training or advanced individualized training. It's basically their job skill training. So they go through like here's your 9-week basic, then you go to here's how you actually learn your job. For the combat arms groups, it's different. We go to one training and it just drags on for torturous hell forever. And you spend all that time at your one station unit training at your version of basic. I remember on the very last day of week 9 of my basic training, I remember our drill sergeants came in the middle of the night, like 3 o'clock at night, and they closed all the windows in our bay, because this was at Fort Benning in Georgia, and it was just ungodly hot in the middle of the summer. But they came in and they closed all the windows in our bay, and like the 2 guys on fire guard, they had told them to shut up and stand down. And then the drill sergeants put on their gas masks and they threw CS gas in our bay and woke up and told us all toe to line. So we were all getting gassed in the middle of the night and locking everything up and struggling to get toe to line real fast. And toe to line is where you have to run up and stand in this perfect circle around the bay. And then our drill sergeants gave us like 20 seconds to go don our gas mask. So we had to go unlock our wall lockers and pull out our gas masks and try to don and clear and breach and run up and get our gas masks back on. And everybody was just struggling and dying. And then when it was all said and done and we were all standing there in this formation in the gas, our drill sergeants just started laughing through the gas mask for like a good solid 60 seconds. And then one of them, I remember Drill Sergeant Z, goes, "Congrats, this is week 9. You would have finished basic training, but you're still stuck here with me, you fuckwits." And then he's just good, go open the windows, clear out the bay, go back to sleep. What a dickhead.
Yeah. I wonder what motivates people to like end up that way. Because like obviously, I mean, I would imagine if someone is in that kind of position, like your drill sergeant, like obviously they've been doing it for a long time. So I guess they've just become jaded over a period of time.
So they are angry, and I understand it because I ended my career as an instructor. They are so much more pissed off than you are, because they are there before you wake up. They are there after you go to sleep. They are there longer than you. They have no days off. There is, you have what's known as cycle reset. So as a drill sergeant cadre unit, when you graduate a class, you get like 2 weeks before your next group of recruit trainees come in. And those 2 weeks are usually spent doing everything possible, cleaning everything, resetting everything, doing admin, doing paperwork, doing all this madness of stuff. And then you kind of get, hopefully, if everything goes well, like this week or so off to kind of really relax. So drill sergeants are at a level 10 of asshole because they are just run beyond ragged, more so than anybody could ever believe. They're run way further more into the dirt and tired than the recruits are at all times, and they can't show it. They have that constant stoic professionalism.
I see. So what rank did you end up I mean, you said you ended up as an instructor, but what rank did you end your I guess your tour? And also what form of military were you in? I don't think we mentioned that. So
I was a staff sergeant. I was up for my, which is an E6 out of 9, and enlisted ranks. In enlisted ranks, you have 1 through 9, and a staff sergeant is an E6. I was up for my E7 promotion. I was up for the board, and I actually had to sign a declination statement to tell the Army no, I was getting out, no more orders. But as far as what I did, I started out in the infantry. I was an infantryman, which is 11 Bravo, or 11 Bang Bang, as we like to call them. And the best description of an 11 Bang Bang or infantry is just big dumb grunt. They are the grunt. They are the fighter. That is the ground war soldier. And there's a number of specialties within being infantry. That's where your snipers are. That's where your recon team is. That's where your mortarmen are. There's a large number of specialization that comes out of it, being in the infantry. But then it also kind of moves into these echelons where you have the 75th Ranger Regiment, or Rangers. That's kind of like your next tier in elitism, if that's an easy way to describe it. And then above that is into Special Forces, which is essentially the Army's most elite group, an Operational Detachment Alpha, or a Special Forces team. So throughout my time in the infantry, I was, I started out as an infantryman. I worked my way up and I tried out for a recon team. And so for almost 5 years, I was part of a long-range reconnaissance and sniper section. And after that, I went to another unit and I was a mechanized squad leader. And mechanized means the tanks, right? You basically take an infantry unit, you give them these Bradleys or Strikers, these armored personnel carriers. So you kind of give the big dumb infantry guys tanks, which nobody should ever do. They should just leave that to the tankers.
Yeah.
But they do anyways. And so from my background and my past in this light infantry reconnaissance style unit, when I showed up to this mechanized unit, they immediately were like, "No, you're not going to mess with that shit. You're going to be the dismount squad leader. We're going to make you in charge of doing everything outside of the tank." I was like, cool, that works for me, because I don't want to sign for all that property equipment or have to work on that stupid thing and do the maintenance. So, and then there were some other bits and other things along the way, and then I finished out as an instructor, and I was a cadre, and I actually taught at Fort Jackson, which is where the basic combat training is for like everyone else. Like when they go to their normal basic, is at Fort Jackson. Fort Jackson, or at least at the time, when I was there, it's still the same, but there's a requirement that every platoon must have at least one infantry drill sergeant, because it doesn't they figured out really quick it doesn't work out very well if you have like a cook drill sergeant trying to teach squad live fire drills to people, when that's not what they do, right?
Right.
So every unit had to have at least one infantry drill sergeant. So we used to say that we were the small island of infantry among the giant world of stupid at Fort Jackson, being in the unit there. But
so you were Army then?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Army infantry.
Gotcha. And you would say, would you say, well, you said that you ended as E6. In comparison to everything else that you went through, like in the course of the 10 years, I guess compared to when you started to where you ended, I guess how far were you from, like, I guess being like, were you a high-ranked official? I know nothing about military jargon, so were you essentially like just a high-ranking official that was qualified to teach new infantrymen?
I'd say part yes and part no to the answer. Yes, and qualified to teaching, right? As far as high ranking, definitely not. Staff sergeants, NCOs, the enlisted corps, all military branches, Army, Navy, Air Force, all of them, they essentially split into two factions, right? One faction is enlisted, the other faction is commissioned officers. Those commissioned officers are, the lieutenants, the captains, the majors, the generals, colonels, all that crap, right? That's the officer side. They run the show. They think they run the show, but really the enlisted does. But they're the ones that sign the papers, that lead at those high levels, that make those large decisions up there. The enlisted runs the day-to-day, everything down, right? As far as a structure goes, an example would be, like, if I was going to break this out, you have a battalion. A battalion is like anywhere from 300 to 500 people. You have one officer that's in charge of the whole battalion. And then under that officer, you have officers that are in charge of each company. And each company is, 70 to 120 or so people. And then underneath that officer, you have people that are in charge of platoons. So platoons are, 20 to 40 some odd people. Well, the NCOs, or the enlisted side, the non-commissioned officers, once you hit sergeant or more, we're in charge of all of those guys. Like, that's where your fire team leaders are, your squad leaders, your platoon sergeants. All those guys run that kind of show. So, like, as on the line, as a staff sergeant, and by on the line, we have a saying in the Army, a line unit is the term for a unit that would fight on the front lines. So, like, if I were a recruiter, or when I was an instructor, or when I did those kinds of jobs, I was not on the line, quote unquote. Being in an active line unit, a unit that deploys and fights, as a staff sergeant, you're a squad leader, and at that time, you're basically responsible for 14 people. You're in charge of 2 fire teams, their fire team leaders, potentially having an RTO, yourself, and usually a local national translator that comes along with you on missions. So usually at that point you're in charge of 12 to 14 folks. So definitely not high up the chain. The enlisted side, the NCOs, they all handle everything directly, right? You can't have this battalion commander who's a lieutenant colonel give orders to 500 people. It has to filter down. Everything has to have a chain. And in any given chain, the Army, at least, has a standard that any chain must be 2 to 4. And that means me as a squad leader, I have 2 fire team leaders below me. They have 4 people below them, right? And above that, my platoon sergeant has 4 squad leaders. Nothing goes above 2 or 4. So anytime I have an order, anytime they have an order, you only have to give that order to 2 people. That disseminates to people, and disseminates and disseminates and disseminates. It breaks that direct chain of control into small groups of 2 to 4, which makes it manageable versus one person trying to give orders to 500 something people.
Of course, yeah, makes sense. All right. So yeah, that was a pretty good kind of like introduction to like what a good portion of your life was, and how I guess you said it was a major formative point in your life, and I would say it's important to kind of get an idea of what that was like and how that went for you, in order to better understand everything else that came after. So that's why I wanted to ask those questions and kind of get a sense of like what that was like for you and what those experiences were I guess entailed in that sense. So from there, I do want to talk a little bit about I still want to talk more about you. Like, in what way, like you said that being in the military helped you to gain this what was it, no fail, this no fail mentality. I don't remember the whole saying that you said, but it was no fail.
Yeah, no fail, no loss.
No fail, no loss. So obviously, like when you're in a combat situation in the military, when you're on the battlefield, you have to make sure that your comrades are gonna come back alive, essentially. So that mindset of always giving your best at all times and staying focused. You said that it played a big part in how you handle things now. So I guess. In what way has that affected, I guess, you as an individual? So when you got out the military, that mindset, obviously you got into cybersecurity, that all came together. I'm assuming because of that mentality, you just didn't let anything get in your way. But how did it feel getting out of the military? I know this is kind of like a different direction, but how did it feel getting out the military and then realizing that there was kind of like your skill set wasn't very much in high demand? Because in my mind, I've always thought that being out of the military, you'd have avenues to take immediately to get jobs, to find work, so on and so forth. But it doesn't seem like that's the case. So so for myself and many others who may not know, what was that like for you, getting out of the military and finding out that you just served your country, and essentially it's harder to be out than it was to be in?
So I think there's some truth and not to that. It is absolutely, without a doubt, for most veterans, I think harder to be out than it is to be in. But as far as folks having avenues or skills that are readily hireable, that only really holds true for most of the combat arms. So for the infantry, my skill set in the infantry has nothing to do that anything in corporate America needs or in the corporate world whatsoever. Nobody needs a range estimate formula by mil conversion to range a target through their scope for a long gun sniper engagement, right? Nobody needs that. Nobody needs me to rattle off that formula and give you a range estimate. That doesn't work. Now, a lot of the other jobs in the military do very readily have opportunities as soon as they come out of the military. I mean, now, perfect example, back in 2012, 2013-ish, I think, the Obama administration signed into law a set of cyber requirements, right, on defending our nation. Our nation has to have, basically, the Obama administration came down and said, we have to modernize with the modern age. We have to set in regulations for our country to not get hacked. How do we protect our citizens, right? We have to make some laws. And along with that was also a part of the militant force of how do we establish ourselves offensively in the cyber realm, because it is the most active war currently going on, is cyber, actually. So you look at that as an example. There are people in the military today that they went into the military, they went through their training, they get all these IT certifications, they get all these cyber certifications, they're hacking, and those folks are immediately snatched up, you know, when they get out, because you've got somebody who has a clearance, somebody who has a ton of certifications, somebody who has a ton of real world firsthand experience doing a very technical and very specialized job. And so as soon as their enlistment's up and they're getting out, they immediately have opportunities. And the same thing goes for most of those other job sets, you know, mechanics or, you know, logistics or any of those kind of jobs. They can find jobs within their field readily, almost immediately on the outside. I think one that does have a struggle is the medical side. You know, our medics, the docs, the medics, and those folks in the military, none of it counts on the civilian side. Like, almost none of it transfers over easily to the civilian side. As a 68 whiskey or a combat medic, you're essentially qualified at the same level as like some paramedics are. But even then, civilian medicine and care has extremely different laws of engagement versus combat medicine and care. And so something that you would do in combat trauma medicine would get you sued, fired, and thrown in jail in civilian medicine. So that's a very hard struggle and transition for those folks. But there are a lot of jobs that do have readily and easily available opportunities when they get out of the military. It's a great place to learn. And even though I am and was Army, I have to give this to them. And Amon, you can't give me shit for this later, Amon. But the Air Force is probably one of the best branches to ever serve in for technical skill sets and job opportunities after the fact. They just as a whole have a very, very large slew of technical job skill sets to learn from. Now, my personal experience to the second part of your question, and how was it hard? What did I have to come to realize? There's a stark moment where you realize, in the military, when I was on active duty and when I was walking around in my uniform and I had all my badges and I had all these schools and I had tabs and anybody could look at my uniform and go, God damn, bro. The second I step out, they don't give two shits, right? When I was trying to get into freaking IT, my very first job in IT was the McDonald's of IT. I was working at Geek Squad at Best Buy, fixing people's computers, right? Imagine going from John J. Rambo, Billy Badass, rappelling out of helicopters onto a hot target in Afghanistan, to now I'm standing here getting yelled at by some lady because her kid spilled apple juice on a laptop. And I have to explain to her that, no, I'm sorry, just because you bought your computer here doesn't mean we fix it for free. That's not how it works with your car either. Your dealership doesn't just fix your car. You have to pay money, and just being shit on by regular people in customer service life. you have a very stark contrasting moment in life when you realize nobody cares how badass you used to be. And not that you should care, you know, you should always be humble and professional about what you did in your past, but it's a bit of an insulting moment to a lot of vets that they struggle with that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Yeah, like it's like I've had conversations with a couple of people who are military, so you know, it's good to get that additional perspective from someone else who's like been straight up army and really has that experience. It seems like it's very fresh in your mind, despite it being. You said you got out in 2014, 2017. What was it?
14.
14.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, yeah, like for it to still be fresh in your mind after nearly a decade that means it really did make an impact on you. So you got into cybersecurity essentially, and that's basically what you've been doing thus far. And let's kind of, I guess we can get into the, like, I guess, what do you do, and how do you, what exactly do you do? Are you like are you your everyday hacker man, or are you doing like very specific type of work?
Oh, please tell me when you edit this, you can insert the hacker man gif meme somewhere in there.
I will try.
So there are a number of different niches and specializations, just like any job, right? And with cyber, one of the things that I love about cyber compared to the whole of IT, if you work in IT, you're a desktop guy, or you're a network guru, or you're a programmer, or you're a web dev, or you work on servers, or you kind of have, everybody kind of has these specialties. You work into this niche, you work into this. The thing about cyber is truly one of those fields where you have to be the jack of all trades and a master of a few, at least. Because in cyber, you have to be able to look at anything on the technical spectrum and understand it to at least a fundamental level, so you can understand what's a problem and see what's a problem and see how something could be abused or exploited for a breach or for whatever means maliciously. So that was one of the things that I liked about cyber is how much you get to experience, how much you get to mess with. Like I'm not stuck in a little hole, and my job scope is not just this very narrow 10 to 2. My job scope in any given point in time could require me to do a ton of different things. So with that, you tracking. With what I do specifically in cyber, and even in cyber, there are people who specialize and they're better at certain things. But with a lot of what I do in cyber is essentially we and my team and who I worked with, what we would do is we would evaluate a system, or we would evaluate a company, or whatever level, or we would work with a group, a project or a division or department, and we would essentially run through the entirety of their system. That could be 5 computers, that could be 500 computers over a large network, a data center, whatever it is. At any scope of one thing, one single programming application, all the way to, you know, this regional footprint of an enterprise. But we would run through it. We would scan it, we would hack it, we would validate all the things we found in our scan. We would basically find every single possible thing wrong with it, and then write the reporting, document everything, and then basically say, here's exactly how we got you. This is what we did. These are all the holes in your fence. These are all the windows that are still open, and these are the doors you haven't locked. And so you basically document that up, and then you help plan out these milestones of, okay, it's going to take so long to fix this. It's going to take all these resources, or this amount of time, or this updating, or these things to fix this. We have to shut this thing down so we can patch it, so something else has to run this program while that server's going down. You're basically helping, planning all those things, and then from that point forward, after the fact, you're basically doing this constant monitoring of it, and it's coming back on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, a quarterly basis of running through everything again and say, okay, so I did my big evaluation. So now I come back next week and I hit all these points. I'm like, what happened over the last week? Did anything go crazy? Did anything go wrong? Did we fix anything? And then on the monthly basis, I've got a different set of lists and items that I hit, and basically plan out this kind of what's known as continuous monitoring and auditing for different phases across like an entire year's life cycle of a system. And just documenting, helping that system stay secure, tracking all the things that do get fixed along the way until hopefully eventually someday it's got a, green flag and a clean bill of health to go on about its way for the company and for whoever's working on it. But yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's an interesting job because it requires extreme technical skills, because you have to be able to work your way through anything technically. It requires more writing skills than I would prefer, because of all the documentation and everything that comes afterwards.
Yeah.
And then it requires a set of people skills that's not common. Most people do not have the ability to stand in front of a room of bigwigs at some company somewhere and break things down Barney style, break it down Crayola style, and explain to them without using overly technical jargon and really make it make sense of why this problem is a problem and why they need to spend money to fix this thing, and or how much money it would cost them if they didn't fix this thing. And really break that down without pissing a lot of people off. So it also requires a certain amount of people skills. But
no, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, like it's like the people skills part is always, I think, really rough for a lot of people, but I obviously I think the value proposition, I think the easy part is showing the value proposition. Like, you go through the system, you tell them what's wrong, you tell them how that's going to affect them. I think the value proposition for them is very, very clear. Their ROI, return on investment, is going to be very, very clear cut, as long as you're, explaining things very, very clearly to them. So it sounds like it's a very exciting, very intense job that requires a lot of focus and constant renewal of your knowledge and skills. Sounds very interesting. I'm always very interested in cyber-related stuff, which is why we're gonna talk a little bit more about VRChat now, actually, and how technology is kind of has motivated you to get involved in this sort of thing, this sort of atmosphere that you and I are engaging in quite frequently these days. So just to kind of start things off, how did you find out about VRChat? I mean, obviously, you have your gamer background, but you're military and you're trying to find your way through in life and everything, and find where you belong and everything. So how did VRChat kind of come into play in the midst of all of that going on?
So right after I got out of the military, Twitch, I remember when Twitch was first starting up.
Just in TV?
Which was baby. Yeah, it was when way back in the day. I had gotten into Twitch pretty good, and I was very active in a few Twitch communities and stuff like that. But then when I started to really knuckle down and study and get my certs and really knuckle down and work on my degree and things like that. So I was working full-time jobs, going to school full-time, studying for a cert at the same time. I was burning out hard. I was constant, sun up to sundown, from the moment I was awake to the moment I was passing out. There were a few nights where I passed out on a certification study book. I was going in hard. I was going hard in the paint, that's for sure. Bob Ross was fucking proud. But I remember towards the end of my degree, and when everything was kind of settling down and I was in my final semester, I was doing a bunch of my capstone assignments and stuff like that. I I listen to music. I listen to music nonstop. If I'm awake, I'm listening to music. I have music on right now. It's a little low, no offense. I don't want it to overpower anything, but I always listen to music. So anyways, I was studying one night, and YouTube and the amount of ads that YouTube was pushing mid playlist, mid videos, mid mixes and stuff. And I don't know why, but for whatever reason that night, I wanted to throw my book across the wall the next time I heard a YouTube ad interrupt the music I was listening to, because I was like, you're breaking my train of thought. I am trying to do this thing and you're killing me. So instead I was like, you know what? I'll pull up Twitch. Twitch doesn't have ads. If I sub to somebody, I'll see if anybody's playing music. Weirdly enough, Sokkz was the first stream that I saw in a category that was doing music, and I remember looking at that going, what the hell is this? What am I looking at?
Yeah.
Right. And I saw Sokkz doing her thing, and it was one of her like Metal Monday nights, so it was metal music. So I was like, hell yeah, I'm down. And this was years and years back now, and so I found Sokkz, and I was watching Sokkz. And unfortunately, I did not finish studying anything that night. If you've ever seen one of Sokkz's streams,
it's mesmerizing.
That'll suck you right in. Yeah, right. So I pretty much spent the rest of my evening that night watching Sokkz, going, I don't know what it is, but I'm here for it. I'm living for it. So finding Sokkz was the first introduction to VR. What VRChat was, and Sokkz, doesn't stream VRChat content like in VR a lot. It's all of her visuals and dancing and stuff like that, and every once in a while her hanging out streams. But that was the first introduction. And honestly, I watched Sokkz for probably a year or two before I ever even got into VR. But that was the point where I knew it existed. That was the first moment where I knew it was a thing. And eventually through Sokkz, I had met other communities that she had raided into, and it just kind of became a thing where I was hanging out in Twitch communities like we all do, and a lot of us know streamer homies, and a lot of us know people through Twitch, and that's how a lot of us have all met each other over time. And one year when the tax return came around, I was just like, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna go buy a Quest and just see what's up and see what it's like. And so I hopped into VR, and it's been that way ever since. I had some really magical experiences in some of those first few months, and still continue to have some pretty magical experiences along the way. But just the closeness and the friendship of it, and the partying and the raves, and some of the intimate conversations and friendships that you get to make through VR, you don't really make easily IRL. It's very hard to have a lot of the connections that we have in VR, because in VR we are not limited to our local bar pool. You're not limited to your work colleagues. You're not limited to somebody you bump into at a Target. In VR, you can be hanging out with somebody from Australia, from Taiwan, and England, and on the West Coast, all in the same room at the same time, and get to know some really interesting people and have some amazing connections and conversations along the way. And so I've constantly been hooked and coming back.
And what year did you find Sokkz?
Ooh, actually this month is my 3-year sub to Sokkz. So with 3 years ago.
All right. Wow.
2020.
Okay. And so around 2022 is when you first got into VR?
I think it was 21. I think it was late 21. I think 21. Yeah, I've been in VR for almost 2 years now.
Okay, okay. Interesting. So when I met you, you had only been in VR for a year?
Yeah, probably about a year-ish.
Yeah.
Probably about a year-ish. Yeah, at that time, I think I'd been in for about a year. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that seems about right. I think I'd been in for about a year.
Yeah. That is, that's unexpected. I did not expect you to have only been in VR for so little time, because you seemed like, obviously you seemed very, very, like like you seem like you were like very much in the rave scene, like you would become a part of that. So can you explain how you like
I think I'm just an agent of chaos that runs around, and I am definitely extroverted in many ways, and I think I just being that agent of chaos that will run up and say cheers and try to get along with any circle of people that I run into at any point in time. I make friends easily as long as people treat me in kind. I treat everyone the best that I possibly can until they deserve otherwise, and so meeting people in that manner and just treating people well,
yeah, which I definitely
fits in.
I definitely appreciated that. Yeah. Okay. I didn't know what to expect when I went to my first rave, and I believe it was Saturday Rave. I believe it was Red Set, and you were there. Like I remember it too. Like I remember it quite well. And like this big blue demon comes up like behind me. I'm just like hello. So I was like, wow. Both intimidating and handsome at the same time, but you were just vibing, like you were just vibing, and like you taught me the half body. Oh, what is it?
Half body thoughty.
Half body thoughty. Yeah.
Half body thoughty twerking.
Yeah, and that was that was it. Like after that, I'm like this guy is super cool. And like from then on, like I think we like had like kind of touch and go conversations, but like I knew that you were a very smart guy. Like just from the few bits and pieces of conversation that we were having when we were talking about music and how that has effect on people psychologically, and I think we even had a pretty deep conversation about, I think, Porter Robinson. I think that's what it was that we were talking about, and we were kind of going through like how that affects people, how that can move people, like how music is like so like magical and wonderful. And I think we'll talk a little bit about music later on, but I do want to stick to VRChat for now. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to reminisce a little bit. I know I talked a little bit about it at the beginning of the podcast, but I definitely just wanted to kind of just reminisce and I'm glad that I met you. Like you're one of the first people that I met at Saturday Rave, so thank you for just being an awesome dude. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think it's especially with anybody. I mean, I treat anyone I don't know when I first meet them with as much respect as I possibly can and as much trust as I possibly can. And I think one thing that a lot of people, especially when they're newer to VR or first getting into VR, they don't understand certain things about the scenes or the dynamics or mutes or how much of a safe space it can be for different people, and even some people who are in a sense scared that, oh no, there's the girl, 50 people flutter because it's actually a girl, there's the girl, there's a girl, go run and talk to the girl, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a big point to be made in just trying to be friends with people and not having ulterior motives behind all of your introductions and ulterior motives behind all of the things in what you do. And so if you simply just be nice to people and talk to them and that be the end of it, it's gonna go a long way, and the next time you see them, hey, how's it going, and that's the end of it. Nothing has to have ulterior motives or anything really forceful or pushy in it. And I think that's one of the reasons why I get along with so many people when I meet them. It's just treating people kindly and it just being there at the face value of what it is in the moment.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there. It's I think it's really, really important to just have not only have an open mind, but to like being friendly to people just for the sake of being friendly to them. I think people aren't used to that. I think when people come into VRChat, people are so used to people wanting something. They want, like, especially if it's like a girl-guy interaction, the girls are so used to the guy wanting something. And I think in VRChat there are a lot of ways where the boundaries can be I guess like reduced for the interaction. And I think it allows people to engage with these different communities, engage with different people, and just have these moments in this platform that they normally wouldn't be able to have otherwise, which is really, really special. I think that's definitely one thing that VRChat does. But obviously, there are a slew of unsavory people on this platform. So it really kind of depends on like your initial experience, your initial like foray into VRChat, which mine was actually pretty magical too, just like yours was for the first couple of months, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, because like so many awesome people.
Yeah, that's extremely true. There's a vast difference between having a good set of friends and communities that you hang out with versus the toxicity and randomness of a public black cat,
Yeah.
There's definitely there's a whole different experience there. That's a night and day experience of what VR can be. I think if I had to, outside of me just being a techno nerd and loving all things technolust, trust your technolust, hack. But if there was something about VR that I love more than just the fact of it being VR and the advancement of technology, I think the coolest thing to me about VR is we get to see and know people as they want to be with no bias. There's no animalistic or prejudice bias in our interactions with people as we get to meet them. I have no idea what you look like. I have no idea where you're from. I have no idea your height, your shape, your color. None of these things matter. None of those things are present in the moment. You only get to know this person via conversation. You get to know the person without that very forefront initial animalistic evaluation that our brains do a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And over time, it really lets you truly know someone on a almost maskless level. In our lives and everywhere we go throughout life, we have a mask and we have the different faces that we show people, and in a way our avatars are our own mask that we show people. But VR lets you get to know somebody on a truer level, especially in those first interactions with people, because there's no bias, there's no judgment of anything. You're just getting to know somebody.
Yeah, it's just like it's a raw interaction with the individual. You only have is the personality to go off on and the conversation that is had, and there could also be some additional like you mentioned the animalistic like judgment. When people see people's avatars, I think people can draw their own personal conclusions. Yep. But all in all, I think the more genuine interactions that we're talking about, like being a part of communities and getting to know people like in a more meaningful way, you really get to know the person, and like all the other stuff that makes them who they are IRL doesn't matter, because you got to know who they are in that moment, and I think that's really, really special, regardless of their background or anything like that. So yeah, I definitely agree with you. It's definitely pretty cool to have that sort of freedom to get to know people as they wish to be seen. And sometimes even heard or not heard, as we know multiple mutes and such. It's very very nice to be able to do that and have those experiences. So, what is the one thing that fascinated you most about VR in general, the technology? I really wanted to talk to you more about technology. And like what your perspectives are on just the idea of artificial intelligence, how that kind of how that can potentially be woven into our daily lives, and even I do want to stick with VR mostly, but like what do you think would be like what do you think is like where do you think VR is headed? Like where do you think that's going?
So where do I think VR itself is headed is I hope that we'll continue to see a lot of advances that make it easier to be in VR. The Quest was an industry breaking device, right? The Quest gave people a entry-level headset, you know, $300 some odd to get into the space. And that really helped a lot of people. And you have a lot of advancements in things like face tracking, eye tracking, hand tracking, you know, full body tracking, and even those things continuing to grow and advance when you look at things like Torres wireless trackers that don't require any base stations, or you look at the new Vive trackers that are coming out that have their own embedded cameras in them. So I mean, technologically, it continues to push the bounds, right? But where do I see VR going as a whole or as an industry? I really and honestly do think that VRChat is the sole leading edge of it. The VR game industry is stark, and it's extremely rough in the VR game industry.
Yes.
VR game and game development studios have an extremely hard time getting payoff and their ROI from what they've put effort into for the game market. The game market itself is extremely, extremely rough, right? So unfortunately, the game market is what would make money, and making money is what makes the corporations pay attention, which then makes the corporations push to R&D and push for new things, right?
Right.
So it's very hard. Let's say VR games were the greatest thing since pockets on jeans, right? like MMOs. I remember when WoW came out, right? When World of Warcraft came out, when MMOs came out, that was the whole craze. Everybody had to make MMOs. Everybody had to be on MMOs. Everybody had to play MMOs. You know, when Battle Royales came out, everybody had to do that. When, you know, these certain things change the industry, and everybody has to go forth and push into it, right?
Right.
If the VR game industry had done that, had it latched on in that manner, we probably would not have 3 or 4 mainstream headsets. We'd probably have 20. You know, we would see so much more corporate backing and investment and push into the field, technology-wise, I think, if it really had. But in reality, the vast majority of the daily user base of VR is VRChat, far more so than anything else is. You know, you have Rec Room, and then you have maybe Pavlov, and there's a few things out there, maybe even Beat Saber, but even those are dwarfed on a daily user base level in comparison to VRChat. So the industry pushing for change, unfortunately, is not there. Unfortunately, it is the user base pushing the industry for change, not the industry pushing for change because of dollar signs.
Right.
Because it's just not there for them. It's just not there for, you know, say Sony made the PSVR, and now they're going to make the PSVR 2, right? And that was, God, when did Sony make the PSVR? Like in 2012 or something?
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Some insane. Yeah, it was a long time ago, right? And so they're just now doing a PSVR 2. I mean, Sony put that out there, got what little return they got, and it's been over a decade before they've come back to the game, right? Mm-hmm. So you're not going to see other companies really push hard into it. Like Microsoft kind of started a little bit with the project, but that entire project was all augmented reality, not really focused on virtual reality. And now we've got Apple doing whatever it is that Apple's doing with that
the Vision Pro. They want everyone to they. It's not enough for people to be in their ecosystem. They want people to live in their ecosystem. It's yeah, I heard about that too. Yeah.
But what I would like to see, what me personally like, if I think about it, and this is a sad thought to me, like anything else, all things will go with time. At some point in time, your favorite game server is going to shut down. At some point in time, technology's just going to change, and it's just not that anymore. And that doesn't mean it's for the worst. You know, hopefully things will be better. But what I personally would love to see is, you know, a deep dive technology, something where it's like I can fully be immersed. I can feel, I can smell, I can hear, I can feel the wind, I can feel the heat. I can, you know, I think it would be amazing to eventually someday be on that like deep dive technology. And I use the coined phrase deep dive from Sword Art Online. You know.
Don't worry, I know. I'm very.
Everybody's
yeah.
yeah. Everybody's favorite VR isekai,
Yes.
right? The VR MMO deep dive, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, imagine if we had something on that level, or imagine if we had something like Star Trek's Holodeck. If you're familiar with seeing that or anything,
yes.
right? I think Ready Player One was really cool, but Ready Player One kind of stuck to almost today's current technology, right? Like Ready Player One, they had a headset, they had controllers, they had a haptic suit, and I'm like, you didn't really push anything new for me, guy. But I love the movie. I love the movie all day long. I love the movie. It's so good. It was a cool movie. But but conceptually, you didn't give me something new there to hope and dream and wish for. But I would hope to see someday that it's on a more advanced level like that. I'd hope to see something someday where we put the headset down and we're still able to step into this alternate reality. I think the only way that's going to happen is if they make the current market more entry friendly, right? Like anybody, it's a lot easier to get the Quest, but we all know Quest standalone is extremely limited in the rest of the VR economy and space. So people somehow need to really be tied into the whole PC VR, Steam VR, the games, the economy, VRChat, everything else on a cheaper level. It'll get there someday. It eventually will get there someday, right? Just like when the first home computers were, the most expensive thing on the planet. And there was a point in time where there might have been one house on the block that had a PC, right? Now everybody's got one. Now everybody's got a laptop. Now everybody's got PCs. Now every household has multiple. At this point, laptops are sitting in the freaking closet because they're too old and we don't use them anymore. It's just a commonplace device. Eventually, I would hope that that's where headsets move to. That's where VR moves to. It's such a commonplace, everyday household device. The more it moves in that direction, then the more we'll finally start to see more advancement, more demand, more need and ROI for those corporations to make changes and advancements.
Yeah, it really does come down to the entertainment industry really latching on to the potential that VR has, and it's really I would say it's really unfortunate. Like I feel like there was through I would say from 2018 to about 2022. I feel like there was a good sense of VR could be something. It could be something very, very lucrative, and I think companies and industries were interested in the prospect of it. But I feel like the moment AI became mainstream, and it's so silly how it became mainstream. It only became mainstream because of ChatGPT. But it's been around for the longest time. Like artificial intelligence has been a part of little bits and pieces of our existence. It hasn't really fully integrated into our everyday lifestyles, but it's been there. But now that it's become this mainstream thing, it seems like immediately it was very clear that VR, just from looking at Facebook Meta, they were very focused on VR for 2 years, and then AI was the new hotness, and then they immediately pivoted over to that. So it's really frustrating when, obviously it's good to move as the industry moves and move as, new ideas become more widely prevalent in the conversation within societies and such. But it really is a shame that VR is ultimately going to lag behind because of this intense interest in artificial intelligence and the uses that it can provide. I guess what are your thoughts about AI and I guess how that if that affects your job and the kind of work that you do, if any? I'd like to just get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, surely. So first I'll start with a slight bit of background more into AI, right? And so everyone right now, AI is it is, and you're correct, it is the current everyday household term, right?
Yes.
Everyone's talking about AI right now, and everyone's using the term AI right now.
But
Truly, at this
yeah.
very moment, it's not. It's not actually AI. Nothing, to our knowledge, nothing has actually had an epoch date or a point of singularity of becoming self-aware and conscious, right? Now, there's the other side of the theory that some AI entity that has reached that point could therefore lie and fail the Turing test, and we wouldn't know, right? But a quick background into it is really what everyone commonly calls AI right now in this moment is actually truly what a few years back most people used to just call deep learning machines.
Like machine learning.
And even, yep, machine learning, deep machine learning. And years and years back, one of the things that we used to do all the time, one of the first things it was used for all the time was actually either cracking or rendering, right? You could basically build this machine with tons upon tons of GPUs, and you could basically push that against encryption, against algorithms, aka also, Bitcoin mining or crypto mining, hashing, doing those hashing calculations. And then it forayed more into language engines and text and response, things like that. And everybody started to get more into, well, let's tie this into bots, right? Bots are the first and most rudimentary form of an attempt of AI, right? Is having bots. And there have been some stellar advances and some stellar failures in that realm. And that some of those bots were let loose and they immediately became racist within 24 hours and had to be taken offline and such things. But even years back before the current push that it is now, Google, Amazon, and Meta, all three of those companies, as well as IBM. IBM has also had a very large hand in it. Just like someone in chat just brought up quantum computing too. But IBM has also been a driving factor behind it as well. Back in the day, and I mean back in the day as far as 5 to 10 years back, all of those organizations were working on what they called AI. They were all working on something to get to the point of having that singularity moment of true AI, of creating something that is truly AI. To the point there was an event with Meta at one point in time where they found that these were essentially just chatbots. They were chatbots that were deep learning, and they were basically trying to push the edge with this AI development as much as possible. And they discovered that the servers running the servers, if you will, an entity, if you will, had developed their own language to communicate with each other, and it was not human readable. And so at that point, they had the people controlling this project had absolutely no clue what it was doing, what it was saying, what was occurring, and they immediately pulled the plug on it. And that was actually when Zuckerberg went on his anti-AI, schmeal, and he from that moment on has been a very anti-protagonist. Well, so Elon kind of was on the for playground.
Well, he was
this
initially.
thing happened, and Zuck was very against, and that's where a lot of their beef and drama, outside of the SpaceX launch that went bad and destroyed some Facebook satellites and stuff. But,
yeah,
that was always a lot of their big contention points, was talking about AI. Now, as far as current work life and how things change, or how does it affect my life? Me personally, my job and my life, there are people that work at Amazon on offensive red teams, or red teams are what we call the offensive hacking teams, right? That's your red team. There are people that are red team engineers at Amazon that work side and side with Amazon's quote unquote AI engines that do vulnerability scanning and hacking. And they are the human counterpart to what the AI has done. The AI has run through, found vulnerabilities, hacked, exploited, written up reports, given everything, and then the human is validating and making sure it doesn't go off the reels, and it's not gone off target, so to speak. So
Yeah.
it is already there, and in many ways it is already integrated into the workforce or integrated into labor, so to speak, right? What do I think it'll do for a lot of us is, I mean, you brought up Chat GPT. Chat GPT has been an amazing tool for people because it is helping solve problems instantly that would take you a long time to work around a hurdle or learn yourself or find the resources or find the answer, or because let's be real, if you've ever tried to fix something and you don't know how to fix it and you Google it and there comes up with 200 different pages of Google search responses and probably 199 of those pages are not going to help you. Chat GPT has been instrumental in really helping people absolutely crush it and actually do some really crazy stuff. The downfall, though, is just like anything else. It's gonna be a crutch. It's gonna become a crutch. It's gonna become a knowledge, skill-seeking crutch in its own way. That I'm sure there are a lot of people that will overuse it and use it for everything.
I mean,
in every aspect.
Couldn't you describe the crutch being sort of like how Google and Yahoo pioneered search engines? Couldn't you describe it to be somewhat of a crutch, like search engines became a crutch for people who were new to the internet to find whatever they wanted to find? So people would say Google it. It's become ubiquitous as a verb. So would you say that? Do you think that ChatGPT as a tool, like obviously there will be other iterations, better machine learning tools out there, but do you think that it becoming a crutch is something bad, given where we started?
I think it goes a little bit past and beyond that. A better example, let's say I need to write an automation script to look for this specific kind of vulnerability. I don't want to go to every website in the world and go see if it has this vulnerability. I want to write an automation script, and I'm going to work with this company, and they've given me this scope and this range is what I'm allowed to go hack, right? Now, instead of me knowing how to do this, I ask ChatGPT to write the automation script for me, and it writes the program. It writes the code for me. And now I can go turn around and unleash that. That's the danger. That's the crutch side of it, right? Because at that point, you become more reliant on that, and you don't know how to write the code yourself. You don't know how to read the code it's giving you. You don't understand how to script. You don't understand the input and output value of it. That goes a lot further than just Google being a crutch is searching for something, right? I'm sure you could equate a librarian being mad that we're no longer in the library to find the book, to find the answer because of Google, right? But with both the library and with Google's result, it's the flat output. Here's answers. They might not be the right answers, but it's an answer. It's not an active object that I can then take from that answer and push, right? Versus ChatGPT. Automate and look for this vulnerability for me. Write this script in Python, please. Thank you. and hand me a bunch of Python code and let me rip it at a target. So I think it's really cool, and it's really amazing, and it's really helpful. I love seeing some of the new plugins that keep coming out for it. Like there's even stuff coming out in the VR space for it, for Unity and for Blender with AIs to help you fix things, help you do things. I've even seen Chat GPT and AI based tools for like video editing, and it's like going through and scanning this entire video and parsing and making clips and doing all this stuff and everything for you, like right off the fly, like cutting down hours worth of editing within 20 minutes. And that's amazing. Those are really, really cool things. That's really awesome. My one thing is, as it becomes more and more and more and more constant and integrated and every day, the danger of it becoming more and more of a crutch, and less of the individual seeking the knowledge, less of the individual learning it themselves.
Like, and like I 100% agree with you. It's there's definitely the danger of being in a situation where younger people who have been growing up with technology for most of their lives are already very much plugged into social media already. So that's already something that has affected their ability to focus, to pay attention in a meaningful way. Multiple like mental disorders have arisen because of the impact that social media has had on younger people. And then you throw
need for instant gratification and all those things.
Yes, exactly. And then you throw on top of that the possibility of machine learning, artificial intelligence being thrown on top of it. So these people who have already been affected by furthering of technology are further affected by lack of ability to learn. The chances of the majority of these people being able to utilize these tools as a means to further their knowledge definitely does seem like it would be a detriment to people's understanding and growth, mental growth of like what actually is there. And then you have all these people who may have done these things but have no working knowledge of how it was done because they've relied solely on these tools. So I do see it as a path towards like a generation who has forgotten how to learn, just as many people in our generation have forgotten how to have a conversation with people. I would say it would be like akin to something of that nature. What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree. And I don't see this as one of those situations where it's like, oh, you never learned how to write in cursive, you can't write a check. Well, no shit, nobody uses it anymore. That doesn't matter. Right? Fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay. Right. The world moves on, the world evolves, things, check 22 passed, our debit cards and our transactions happen immediately. We don't need to write a paper ledger of what our bank balance is. Those things evolve and things get better, right? Just because you don't have or learn certain skills doesn't mean it's wrong. But a tool that can then teach you or give you the answer or do everything for you all the time, every day, anywhere, at any moment you need, affects way more than just, I never learned cursive in school, right? This is not a generational problem. This is not a generational judgment between what people have learned or how they learned it. It's more of the danger of it being almost too easy or too convenient, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's an issue. That's my issue, right? Is the danger of its ease and convenience, and it potentially being its own smoking gun in certain ways when used.
And okay. And what do you think of the idea of, like, I mean, many of us, I think practically all of us are essentially connected to either our phones or our PCs or both. At this point, we can't go anywhere without these things. What do you think about the possibility of the human brain and artificial intelligence, even what is it, Neurolink to a degree, as
Neurolink.
As we kind of move back into VR, but still kind of in the AI sector. Like, what do you think about the idea of the merging of both humans and with these machines, like with as people become more reliant on AI and things of that nature? What do you think about how that could ultimately affect humans? Do you think, like, obviously it gets easier, it becomes more convenient. A lot of people will be able to use it to learn things at a faster rate, but then others will just choose not to learn at all and retain nothing. That could cause like various sorts of like
Let's just hope Darwinism gets stronger in those days.
Yeah, absolutely. So like, do you think that the merging of the human brain with things like Neurolink, or just like machines making our connection with our technical oh my gosh, with our technological devices, making that, do you think that connection is good? Do you think that's gonna, obviously it'll make things better, but do you think that's a danger? Do you think that will be detrimental to humanity? Like, what do you think?
I think everything is dangerous in the beginning. Everything is going to be dangerous in the beginning. We're not going to learn the problems until we've seen the damage, and then
like
we learn to regulate. We learn we learn to regulate. We learn to build policy. We learn to teach. We learn to educate. You learn to teach children about the dangers of the internet. You learn to teach children about the phone and about social media, and you learn to help control things, and you learn those social disorders and those problems that it's caused, right? And only now, around a decade or so later, are we really truly aware of what it's done and what it's doing, right? Everything's dangerous in the beginning, and I think a decade from now it'll look even completely different in that aspect. So to the point of the question, do I think the bridging of what's a good word? The bridging of flesh and technology, right? The integration of ourselves, our brain, our bodies with our technology and all of it. Do I think it's going to happen? Yes, I do think it's going to happen, right? Like when I talk about things earlier and I say things like, I hope someday we'll put the headset down. That's, you're going to be on a Neurolink or something. You're going to be tied into something somehow.
Yeah.
Do I think it's going to happen? I do think it's going to happen. But do I think it's going to be good or bad? I think in the end it will be good. But I think in the beginning it's going to be dangerous, and in the beginning it's going to be bad. But I think eventually it will continue to evolve to be good. And you're right, like we've made many points in tonight's conversation where we talked about back in the day there was a point where maybe only one house on the street had a PC. Now everyone has a PC. Then there were phones. Now everyone has phones. Now every phone has the personal assistant. Now we've got Siri. Now we've got everything else. Eventually, ChatGPT, true levels of deep learning or AI is going to integrate with those things, and it's going to go further and further and further. And eventually Neuralink's going to come around, and we're not even going to need the phone in our hand anymore. Eventually you might have a contact lens. You might have almost to the point of actually having actual implants, Neuralink, and pushing that actual implant envelope of that being the next thing, to the point where you end up in some kind of end-all world that you imagine, like Ghost in the Shell or like in Cyberpunk or something like that, where it is just so integrated with us in every single way. The good or bad is going to come based on what we learn from it and the regulation that comes out of it, the regulation and policy enforcement. I will tell you, I'm half and half. There is the one side of me wants to be the first goddamn person to put a Neuralink in my head. Like, what can this shit do? Let me mess with it. Now the other side of me is, how do I hack it? How do I... What damage can I do with that? What damage can I do? And so back to those other perfect examples. You play Cyberpunk 2077 and you see what that's like, or you watch Ghost in the Shell or anime like that, and you see those kind of situations, and people's lives completely ruined, destroyed, controlled, erased, everything because of their implants, because they were hacked, right? Do I think all this stuff is eventually gonna bridge and work that way? I do think it'll eventually get that way. Not in the next 5 years, maybe in the next 50. But I don't know. I think it'll be bad and dangerous at the front, but I think eventually in the end it'll be good. but it all boils down to how we control it and how do we make safeguards. What safeguards do we put in place? What legislation is actually there that matters and actually works? And we all know that legislation is woefully behind on everything at all times ever, right?
Yeah,
If you
especially
oh my
with
God,
technology.
the computer, with technology, it's insane. The Computer Fraud and Abuse Act is the one legal clause that hackers or people are tried under. That was written in 1986. 1986. And they're still trying people under that today. Now there's been amendments, right? They've made some updates to it, but it's woefully bad. So I hate to think how that's going to work out, how policy, litigation, safeguards, regulation, frameworks, compliance, any of that's going to come into play. It's going to take a lot. It's going to take some very forward-thinking administrations to work that out and make things safe.
Agreed. Would you, if you had the opportunity to save your consciousness in like a hard drive situation, so that when you die you would be able to live on and essentially be able to have like another version of yourself, is that something that you would do?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Why?
Yeah. I think I would definitely. I totally think I would be one of those people to upload, right? Like if my body was at the end of its road, I would totally upload. If that was a thing. I'm not a big fan on the theories of the afterlife. I'm not a big fan on the powers that be or any of those things and all the rules that go with it. So I absolutely would. I would totally upload. You know, if I'm done and I'm gonna be done and my body is done, I'd take the next best route, next best thing, because I can control that thing. To an extent, it's a choice I can control.
Okay. And I guess with that in mind, do you believe that the uploading of one's consciousness means that they continue to live on, or do you believe that the uploading of one's consciousness would ultimately mean that it will be like it is essentially a different version of you? It is a copy of you, but is essentially not you. Do you believe that you would be aware that it is not you, or do you believe that it is just not you completely?
I don't think anybody's gonna know until
they're told.
Until that really happens. And the issue is, how do you actually know? So let's say in that situation, I upload and I die, right? Do I die or do I transfer? Does my awareness transfer? Do I even know? Right? Does my copied consciousness itself become aware, but it's not actually me? I died and I never got to go on to the second spot, right? Well, we're not going to know. I have no idea how we're going to validate and know when that ever happens. And that's definitely been pushed around in a lot of entertainment media in many forms, you know, in Black Mirror and in novels and books and in shows and a lot of places about the afterlife and death and what do we ever know? And I have no clue how that's going to work out. But you know what? Even in that situation, if my body is fatally done and it's gonna be done and I had the opportunity, I would still probably go for it. And even if I'm not the point that transfers, something does. That thing gets to go on. And hey, that'd be cool as shit. Live on forever as long as there's power to keep the servers up, right?
Yeah.
As long as they don't, you know, and until it turns into some meta Amazon-like company that's, you know, dystopian and controlling my existence and shutting me down because I didn't make my payment or something. Who knows how that's gonna go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you better believe it's going to cost money.
Oh, oh, absolutely. Like it's going to be, when that actually comes around, it's going to be expensive, just like any other advent in technology. It's not gonna be for the masses. It's gonna be for the 1%. Absolutely, 100%. Yeah.
Yep.
But hopefully it like. I imagine something like that will become, available to people who are, not at the top pecking order. But I imagine it would be a service. Like people would create services around that, and you'd have to validate the services just like you would do window shopping on any other company in general. So, yeah, that's how I envision that sort of thing happening in the future if it were to occur, if that became a thing where people sought to have immortality to some degree.
The only reason I don't think it would ever stick to just the 1% is because eventually the 1% is going to realize how much money they can make off of it, and then it will be for the masses.
Right. Yeah, it'll become a business.
Then it will become a service.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Absolutely. How about we jump into your creative endeavors?
Sure.
Yeah.
So me creatively, I can't draw to save my life. I can't write music to save my life. I cannot do. So if you just sit me down in a space and tell me to be creative, it doesn't happen. I can't do it. I found Blender a few years back, actually, for cosplay. Actually, when I very, very first got into it, I remember I bought my first 3D printer, and the reason why I bought a 3D printer was so I could print off and make terrain for tabletop gaming, because, high tier nerddom here.
Yeah.
All about the tabletop gaming. We're talking like D&D and stuff like that.
Would have never guessed.
Oh, damn, I could I can 3D print all this stuff, and I can make it for tabletop gaming and stuff. And I was like, absolutely. And then through having this 3D printer, I started to discover what are all the other things I can do with 3D printing. And then I was like, oh damn, like I can make that gun from my favorite game, or I can make this shield or that sword or this, or this thing, or I can make all this crap. And then in turn, I learned that Blender is pretty much the end all be all go to for most people, that's open source and free when it comes to 3D modeling software. And it does so much more than just that. But that was when I really first started getting into Blender, and this was years ago, to start making cosplay props, basically, to start making weapons and armor and helmets and shields and swords and all kinds of stuff from all these different games. And
so you had the motivation to do that, like when the technology was still very early? Because obviously, if it was like a long time ago, was it like a while ago? Because it seems like the technology was still very early at that point.
Yeah, my first 3D printer I got almost 6 years ago. It's like around 5, maybe 6 years ago. And 3D printing has come a long way since then. My very first printer, oh my god, it's a piece of shit. Oh my god, it's garbage. It's terrible compared to the printers that I have now. But that was really what first got me into Blender. Was I wanted to make a shape. I wanted to make a thing. And I started learning Blender, and surprisingly enough, my cosplay following is actually like my largest follower base is from the cosplay props and stuff that I've made. Because I've made cosplay props for a lot of pretty prominent cosplayers, and has been featured in a lot of things, and even to the point that at one point, like 2 years ago, EA actually retweeted one of my props from Apex. For Apex Legends and stuff.
Wow.
So my cosplay following and that whole base is actually way bigger than anything else, and I don't even barely make cosplay props anymore. But that's what got me into Blender. And then when I got into VR, I started to notice something that anybody who's been in VR for more than a few days knows, that there are a lot of strong archetypes to the different avatars around VR. You know, there are the cat girls, there are, you know, the furries, there are the e-boy avies, and there are, you know, and if you wanted to be a male avatar, if you wanted to wear a male avatar, you had some very limited choices. You could look like the stripper. You know, you could be the total fuckboy, right? You could look like a meme. You could be the meme avatar, right? That was one choice. Or you looked like the sad boy hours. Like you were in the big hoodie and you were all tiny in the corner with the scruffy hair, and that's it. You know, it was like, it was hard to find any avatar outside of that. It was like, hey, can I just look normal and not look like a goddamn Chad? Or like I'm, you know, like, damn, bro, the male avatar market out there is a barren wasteland.
Yeah.
And then when you go to try to find assets, like if you try to find a shirt, like if you just try to find some swim trunks, man, there's like 2. And I'm not shit. There's like 2. I'm like, I can like pull up their links right now. There are like 2 swim trunks in all of Gumroad, Jinxie, Etsy, anywhere that I can look. It's terrible. It's hard to find stuff. And the whole point was, I wanted to look like something that I felt was me, and I could not find it. I couldn't find it. So I was like, well, I guess I'll learn how to make something. And that's how this came into being over time and over evolution of learning and stuff. Is, you know, I wanted to be this very chill kind of metalhead dude and be my blue demon self in my own way, and making my image in the way that I look. And granted, the first Avi I put out, he is definitely the stripper fuckboy look. I'm not gonna lie, but you know, the people want what they want.
Yeah.
But the point of learning it all was, I really enjoyed the process of learning how to do it so that I could look the way I wanted to look. So I'm sure if I wanted to look this way, I'm sure other people would feel more comfortable having options outside of that archetype of, you know, the stripper boy look, or the sad boy look, or the meme look, or something, you know, to give people other styles or other things they could wear. So that really like just drove me into this frenzy of learning everything I could learn about Blender. Like I said early on in the night, when I learn something, when I start something new, I have to know it. There's a saying, there's a difference between amateurs train until they get it right, professionals train until they can't get it wrong. That lives with me, where I'm like, I have to just, like, I don't need my cheat sheet anymore. I don't need my notes. I've done this so many times. I know how to do this. I can just do this on the fly as a second thought kind of thing. And I remember when I made my first avatar, my first version of my first avatar, I really didn't sleep for shit for like 3 days, because I hyper fixated like a god. And I go into my tunnel and I am just tunnel vision, and the world just disappears. And I was watching YouTube video after tutorial after tutorial after tutorial, learning things, finding things, shaping things. And I'll be perfectly honest, my first avatar looked like trash. It was terrible. It is so bad looking. but I learned, and I made my first avatar, and I was like, this is cool. I have something that's me. I made this, and it looks the way I want it to look. And Blender as a tool, I have found that Blender as a tool works very well with me. And I'm eating again. Chill. I found that Blender as a tool works very well with me, because Blender is linear. It is a science, right? It is this point to this point, and move this point, or make a curve, or make this thing. I can have a vision in my brain, and I am now knowledgeable enough in Blender that I can create this object in Blender. And having that ability was really important for me, because I can't draw,
right?
Because I can't write music for crap, because I'm terrible at writing. You know, I poetry, literature, music, art, all those things are terrible for me to be able to put that out from what's in my brain to a reality in a space. And learning Blender, I really latched on with the ability of, this gives me something that's linear. It's not how bad I drew the shape. It's not how bad I wrote the lines. It's not how off key it is. It's my failure and my error, my trial and error, my constant persistence here. I've learned how to make this manipulate what I want it to do. And that was a huge moment when I said, I have a vision, and I made the vision work. And I was like, that's it. I love it. I'm in it, down for it. And I have been constantly in Blender doing something at some point for the last almost 2 years now. This week has been the very first week where I consistently told myself I'm not allowed to go into Blender. I'm taking the week off. I'm taking time off. I'm not doing any avatar work. I'm not working on anything. I'm not making anything. And I've even thought about it. There was even times I was like, well, I need to like update my OC and I can get it done before the podcast. And I'm like, no, bitch, go sit down, go stop, go chill. Because then you're just giving yourself something else to stress about and a deadline. Just stop, go sit down, chill, enjoy the week, go play a damn video game, go game a little bit, go sweat. And so yeah, I've taken that time off. But yeah, I don't know what it is. It's something about Blender, and having a tool that I can manipulate to an outcome really connects with me.
Yeah, I often wish that that I had a means to, or not a means to, but I guess the motivation to get into Blender myself, because I too can't draw, but I did teach myself Photoshop, and video editing and a variety of other skills, but even still, like the fact that you like, I think that's really where at the core of everything, that's where creativity begins. It's when you hit a wall where you want something so badly that you will take the time to learn the thing that you need to learn so that you can have the thing that you want. And no matter how long it takes or how much work it's required, you will make the effort to make that happen. I think that's really where a lot of I think that's where motivation begins. It's the desire to want to see something and to bring that to life. And I wish more people had that understanding of just like, if there's something that you want to see exist, you know, we live in the future. There are ways to see that happen. And for me, and I think for many people, it comes down to time, but I think for a lot of people, it comes down to just not having the right mindset about it, not wanting the thing bad enough. And it seems like that, like, you had the desire, you had the experience with cosplay, prop making, and it just kind of all synced up really nicely with your desires in VRChat, and you just launched your first public Avi, Bacchus, last what was it? What day was it? Last Thursday?
Friday.
Friday.
Last Friday.
Yeah.
Bacchus came out last Friday, and then I released some horns along with it, and then the chest piece for it. Honestly, I think I really love everything that I learned through the project. It's definitely going to change how I approach the next one, and the next one, you know, you get better with everything you do every time. You should try to, if you're not. But honestly, out of all of it, I think the horns are still probably my favorite piece that I did. The horns were the very first 100% purely from scratch thing that I made, like, without a doubt, 100%. I made that. I made it in Blender. I learned Substance Painter. I made its textures for it. I put it in Unity. I made shaders, and I put it into reality. And I was like, damn, those look good. I like that shit. And I am, out of all of it, I think it was really cool Friday night at the launch party. The first time I saw somebody wear the horns, I lit up. I was in heaven. I was like, that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And the same thing seeing somebody wear the avatar too. But I think I'm the most excited about the horns, honestly, because the Avi is not for everybody, right? And I'm not saying that because I don't want anyone's welcome to wear it, right? I'm just saying it's not everyone's taste, right? The Avi is not everyone's taste, not what they choose, but the horns are much so more everyone's taste. I think there are a lot of people that could see those horns fit with a lot of different vibes, and I'm really excited because there have already been a few people who have already bought commercial licenses to the horns that are other creators. So I've been paying close attention and watching, because now I want to see what some of these other creators do and what these other creators come up with, and they put those horns on their project and on their Avies that they sell and stuff. So I'm really excited to see those horns out and about in a lot of people's own personal projects and on their avatars and what people make with them.
Yeah, that's really exciting to make something, put it out into the world, and people having the ability to use them and wear them as they please. That must make you feel like really, really accomplished. But obviously, you know, as someone who's extremely motivated, you know, that's like, this is just the beginning. This is just the start of it. And like, do you like? Can you? I want to ask about like what you're doing in terms of like asset creation. Like, do you enjoy asset creation more than Avi creation, or are they something you enjoy equally?
Yes. So I feel like there's a difference in labor. There's a huge difference in labor.
Right.
An asset is, now with where I'm at in the skill of everything, an asset is so much faster to create than an avatar is. Just because avatars take an insane amount of work when you do it right, what I consider doing it right, in my opinion. And I will say, like, I'll be the first person to say, like, my Bacchus was heavy. It was heavier than I wanted it to be. Its download size wasn't too bad. Its VRAM size wasn't worse than some of the others out there. By all comparisons, the vast majority of Avies that I look at, it's still lighter than they are for the most part, but it was still heavier than I wanted it to be. It was more than I wanted it to be, and so I learned a lot from that. But the good things about Bacchus that took me so much time was the quality of testing. It doesn't clip, right? Having things not be done sloppily, having things be weight painted right, having toggles work, having nothing break. It doesn't matter what toggle state you're in, it doesn't break another toggle. Like, all of that back end work that you don't see and you don't really appreciate is the huge time commitment with avatars that just none of that is there for an asset. For an asset, it's I made it look good. It has a low poly count. I have some really awesome textures for people to use, and here it's weighted to something, and it's pretty much out the door. And you can put it out a lot faster compared to everything that goes into an avatar, with all the testing, with all of the, you know, does it work right? Is my Unity package clean? You know, what questions are people going to have? Does this, like, my end goal here is I give you a Unity package, you put that Unity package in, and you can click upload and there's no errors, and it loads and everything works and nothing clips and nothing looks like shit and nothing's bad. That's a feat. That's a lot of work in itself, right? By comparison to a lot of the things on the market. Even this avatar has some bad things that I would not settle for publicly selling to people.
Is that Avi one that you made yourself? Is this like your first Avi, or did you build that off of something that was already existing?
This one is completely made from the base up. All of the avatars that I wear are completely everything has been put together by me. That doesn't mean that I made everything from scratch. It's that I kit bashed, that I bought my panda base, I bought the head, I bought the hair, I bought everything. On this one, the only thing that's original on this one is the horns. I wanted horns that no one else had, so I made the horns on this one. But this is, all these assets are from other creators, but just things that I've learned over time that I would change a lot about this avatar. Learned a lot about differences in weight painting and stuff, like when I move my arms and clipping and pulling on the edge of the vest, and how it moves in, and some of the things look a little ugly in the amount of space up on the side. Just a ton of stuff like that I've learned along the way, that I need to go back and redo this avatar and just make it better than it was back when I made it, because I think I made this one sometime in the fall of last year. I think it's been a while. It's been a long while since I've updated my OC.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when I first met you, there were I obviously the iconic blue, the tats. I think the sunglasses were a thing back then for you. I don't think you had the horns. I don't think you had those special horns yet. But yeah, it seems like you've still put a lot of time into this one.
I wonder if I can see. No, I'm trying to look if there was I'd probably have to go back and look at my on the actual website, or I can go back and look at the Blender file of when I actually made this or uploaded it. But yeah, it's been around for a hot minute.
Yeah, and it's totally fine if you can't find it at the moment. But while you're searching for that, I'll kind of prime you for a new question. So, I think a lot of people would be interested in understanding your process of how you approached making a new avatar, or just kind of. I wouldn't say from start to finish, but just the general process of how you went about.
The whole workflow.
The workflow of it, and from the initial design, from creating the I would say I guess you made, oh God, what's the term? The things, gosh, my mind is blanking at the moment.
Those things.
Yeah,
all those things.
All the things.
All the things.
But well, how about you just share what your how you went about doing that process? I'm blanking on
Sure.
my terminology at the moment.
So the first thing is more or less an idea of what's the idea? What's the end goal, right? And that doesn't mean I know what the avatar looks like. Right now I have plans for 4 other avatars that I'm going to make, and they all have an idea. They have a goal. They have an aesthetic, a vibe to them. There's a point there. There's so with Bacchus, the goal was Rave Abby. I wanted a rave party Abby, right? I love this avatar. This is me. This is my OC. This is the way I love this look, right? But the chill metalhead isn't the sadder rave look, right? He's not the rave boy look. And it makes me very uniquely me in my own way, but I wanted a different look. And so that's the first part, right? So the very, very first part is what is the goal? What is the look here? Am I making a female avatar? Is she cutesy? Is she gothy? Is she witchy? There's a big difference here between is she cutesy and comfy, or is she a bad bitch?
True.
Right? That's a huge difference in vision and goal, right? So that's the first step. The first step is vision and goal. And the second step is, while I'm thinking about that, it's brainstorming and what features do I want and what cool things do I want it to do, because something that I want to do every single time that I do an avatar is I want an avatar every time to have something that's different, something that's new, something that stands out, something that's not just the regular toggles and things that everyone has. So what feature or function does it have that's different? This is kind of that brainstorming phase where I'm literally writing notes down when they pop up in my head in a book. And in that phase right there's also where I start shopping, where I start when I'm out on Jinxie and I'm out looking through the marketplaces and I'm looking at assets and I'm like, do I see something that other creators have made that really fit the look I'm going for? Has somebody already done some work for me? And what am I going to make from scratch? So then I start kind of piecing together different assets and different, the look starts to come together. And that's where I start to decide my list of, okay, I'm going to use these pants, I'm going to use those shoes, I'm going to use this shirt, I'm going to use that, and you start kind of like piecing it all out and saying, okay, the look is coming together. The overall look is starting to come together. Now, once you have all of that kind of laid down flat, then I'm in Blender. Now I've got everything together, I'm in Blender. So in Blender, it's literally just a body. Just the base. Now I slap the head on. Now I've got the head and the base on. Now I slap the hair on, and then I move down. Now am I going with different ears? Am I going with these elf ears? Am I going with normal looking ears? Am I putting earrings on? Am I putting horns on? And it's just piece by piece by piece by piece by piece. And then the clothing is obviously the clothing is the most intensive of it, because ears, they're easy. You weight them to the head, they wiggle. It's pretty cool, right? Hair, ears, horns, all that kind of stuff, that's pretty easy. The head is a very easy thing to work with, and it's a very easy thing to manipulate, shape, sculpt, size to how you want it, place it where you want it, and then weight it, and then it moves with the head when you move the head. And that's a very easy kind of step to accomplish. But it's once you get to the clothing where the challenges really start to come in. For female avatar creation, 9 times out of 10 it's a lot easier, because for a panda female base, there's 100,000 assets out there or something that I could throw a rock and I could hit 9 different shirts that are made for a panda female base, right? And I'm gonna bring it into Blender and it's just gonna fit perfectly, and I'm just gonna weight it and it's gonna be done, and I'm just done, right? The male avatar market, like I said earlier, there's literally only two board shorts that exist that are like worth a damn out there right now. So this is where the long part of the work comes in, where you're reshaping, resizing, resculpting, and refitting assets to the base that you're working on. And then once you got it really good, like as good as you think it's going to be good, then you start doing your weight painting. And then you've got it weight painted, and then you start moving it around and you start seeing where it's clipping and where it's having problems. And then you're nudging and pulling things and making a little bit more space for things to move. And then you're weight painting again, and then you're setting up clipping. You're setting up blend shapes on the body to constrict things and hide them inside the clothing, and doing stuff like that so you don't have as much clipping. And you do all this work, and all this happens for one piece. Just the shirt, or just the pants, or just the underwear, or just the shoes, or you're doing all this work for every single piece along the way to make sure it's fit to the base, that it looks good, that it's weighted, that things are set up. And once you have everything on, all of it, all of your pieces, all of your things, all of your stuff's built together, then you need to really clean things up. Then I kind of go into my cleanup phase, where I might have way too many separate meshes. I might have, like, here's the thing, like I'm never going to toggle my fingernails. I'm never going to turn them off, right? I'm going to turn my jacket off, or I'm going to turn my shirt off, but I'm not going to do that with my fingernails. Or I'm not going to do that to my eyes, or I'm not going to do that to my ears. I'm not going to make my ears disappear, Mm-hmm. So that's where you start going into this consolidation and cleanup phase, where you start bringing all the different assets together and start really kind of planning out what's going to be in Unity, what's going to be separate in Unity, what's going to have separate materials and slots. And this cleanup phase, by the end of it, I have all of my meshes lined out to what needs to be separate or what needs to be joined, all of my materials assigned, this a good asset has one material slot and it has good textures that do everything for it. Sometimes it's easier to have multiple material slots on a single thing. It gives you a little bit easier customization, but then we're weighing the balance of performance and rating versus ease of customization. So you make these decisions, right? You have, okay, this is put together, this is cleaned up, everything's weight painted, everything works. And then usually the first thing I do from this point, once I put it in Unity, is I slap insane colors on it. And I mean crazy colors, like bright neon green and like dark blue and just crazy contrasting colors. And I throw it in Unity and I upload it right off the bat. Nothing going on. I haven't built toggles, I haven't done anything. I'm just putting it in Unity just so I can get it in VR, just so I can move around and start moving around and really seeing like, oh, that's bad. That's terrible, right? I need to fix that. I need to, there's no point in me doing tons and tons and tons of work on an avatar that I haven't even put in VR yet and realized, oops, I need to go all the way back to Blender to fix this thing. So that's when I really spend, then that's a big phase in itself. That's the back and forth phase of, okay, let me fix this thing. Let me upload it again. Let me make sure this works. Let me make sure this moves right. Let me make sure this doesn't blow up and look like crap. And then once the Avi really, truly all works together and moves together, then it's time to do the pretty, do the shaders, make it look cool, make it look good. And I use one tool that I really like a lot called High's Lightbox. And High's Lightbox lets you see the avatar in like 6 different world lightings at the exact same time in Unity, versus the old school terrible way of having to change your shader settings, upload it to VR, go into VR, go to different worlds to see how you look and see if it looks like crap or not. High's Lightbox lets you do all of that live in Unity without having to do that. So I spend a lot of time working on the shading, working on the lighting, working on shadowing, reflections, specular workflows, ambient occlusion, a lot of these things that make an avatar pop, make an avatar look real, how it's gonna look and behave in multiple different environments. So now once everything's there's done, now it's pretty, right? After it's pretty, now let me make function, let me make toggles, let me, how do toggles work, what are all these things going to interact with, am I going to make, colliders, what happens with a collider, what do I make a, can I give it head pats, does it make a sound, all these different interactions, what's going to come off, what's going to change colors, what's going to have different materials. And then that whole process in itself is a whole brainstorming phase alone, because then you start coming up with new things and more possibilities and what you want it to do. And I'll say that throughout the entire time, I usually come up with more things. It takes shape, just like clay takes shape. It starts to take shape, and what I thought the vision was at the beginning is not what the final product was. The final product is, ooh, that's a good idea, I'm gonna do that too. And then sometimes what happens is, ooh, that's a good idea, I'm gonna do that too. And then 2 days later, I'm like, fuck that, I'm never doing that again. That's not happening. It's not going on the avatar. Next thing, next idea, next problem. Sometimes it's a bit of trial and error. Sometimes things work out the way you envision them. Sometimes they don't come out the way you envision it. But in the end, this final product finally comes to life. So if I step back for like 2 seconds to recap that entire long spiel, you essentially have a vision and a goal. You have some brainstorming and designing. You have some shopping. You're picking things out. It's starting to, the end look is starting to come together. Then you're going into Blender, putting everything together. Then it's piece by piece, putting it all on the avatar, sculpting, fitting, weighting. Then it's going into Unity and uploaded to VR to make sure everything moves and really moves well, and find all the clipping and errors, and you go back and forth and tweak it. And then you make it pretty. Then we go into the shaders and we go into all of our materials, and everything there's got to look good. And then finally the functionality, all the toggles, all the interactions, all the things it does. And once you have all that stuff done, and it's you feel like you're done. That's really just version 1. Then you got to go test it. You got to go wear it for a week. You gotta go see what breaks, what doesn't work, what doesn't do what you thought it was going to do properly. What do you hate about it? What have you noticed? It's like, this was a good idea, I put it on, I made it work, but now that I've worn it for more than 10 minutes during a random test when I was tired after the 3rd day, what do I hate about it? What do I need to go back and fix, right? So you kind of go into this like week or so of like your own personal QA testing, your own personal quality assurance check of wearing it and trying it out, and seeing what works, what fits, what stays, versus what you might just get rid of.
Yeah, that sounds extremely involved. Like that, like everything that you explained, it seems pretty damn involved. Like my knowledge of Blender is extremely limited, so like I want to ask about your, like, when you say weighted, when you're weighting things, like I guess, what does that look like in Blender? And what exactly are you like sculpting? Because you said you're going shopping, so I guess what in Blender are you sculpting? Since you said there's like a panda base that you purchase, and I'm assuming that gets imported into Blender, and that's like the body base, I'm assuming, that you're working off of.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just making sure I understand.
So with weighting, with weighting and sculpting, this avatar, my OC right now is a panda base. Bacchus that I made is a blossom base, a different male body base. But this one, for an example, this base, let's say, what's a good example? The shirt. So the shirt for this was made for a completely different male base, right? So when I bring it into Blender, it does not fit the body. It's like too small. Things are, my chest is poking out, or my arms don't fit, or the collar does not fit the shape of my neck and my traps, and it doesn't fit, right? It's just for a completely different shape. So this is the sculpting portion, where you actually have to manipulate the object, and you have to push and pull and move the vertices of the object and fit them to your body base. You have to fit it to the body, right?
Okay.
Make it actually fit the body versus what it looked like. Now weighting, how weighting works is at the base level, you have armature. Armature are bones. That's the easiest way to think of it, is a bone. You have your humerus, you have radius, ulnus. Like in Blender, I have two. I have a bone here and I have a bone here, right? I have two bones. These two armature bones control the mesh. So this bone right here, its weight painting, as it's called, or weight, affects all of the vertices from here to here. This bone affects the weight right here. They're weighted to this bone. So when this bone moves, that mesh moves. That's weight painting. We are basically telling what part of a mesh, what vertex to move with what bone. And that controls how everything, in turn moves, right? So you have armature bones, and then you have the mesh. The mesh is the object itself, the body base. Everything you see is a mesh. The mesh, just think of the mesh as the actual object, and then think of the armature as just a bone underneath, and we're weighting it to that bone. An example of bad weighting, let me find it. If I can find it, your camera probably won't even be able to see it. There is one point on one of my fingers that is like slightly weighted to one of the other finger bones, so it like pulls out when I move a different finger. And that's a problem with like weight painting, right? Or let's say, you know, somehow when I was working on weight painting, I accidentally hit a piece of this, so every time I move this arm, a piece of my jacket moves with it, right? Like those are problems with weight painting. Now the biggest issue here is when you buy an asset and that asset was not made for your base, like this shirt, well, really anything. There's nothing on this freaking thing that was made for my base. When you buy an asset that's not made for your base, that means it's not weighted to your base. That means these pants were made and weighted to move to a different set of bones than what my body has. So I have to, after sculpting and getting them to fit, I have to go tell those pants, this part of the pants, you move with this bone. This part of the pants, you move with this bone. And I have to weight them to the armature. And the reason why we call it weighting is because that's the official term is weight painting. And you have a weight value of 0 to 1. So your weight can be like 2.7 or 3.9 or whatever. You have this value from 0 to 1 for every single vertex, and every single vertex has a different weight from a different bone. And that's these things get blended together.
Interesting. Okay.
And by blending, I mean like actually like blending, like imagine like watercolor blending, like blending the colors, making a gradient so it's smooth movement and stuff.
Gotcha. So you're basically doing everything, like from like the from putting the clothes on to the coloring. You do all of that in Blender. So like all of the coloring happens in Blender, and then you bring it into Unity, and then that's just that part is like the lighting, the texturing. Well, what? So, I guess I'm trying to understand. So with Unity, you're basically handling like the lighting, and I guess how it's.
So Unity is colors too.
Okay.
So in Blender, I never work on color or texture, so to speak, in Blender, because it doesn't matter. That doesn't transfer out. Really, what Blender matters for is the shape and how it moves, and what's separated in different material slots. Unity is where we do all of our coloring, so to speak.
Okay.
Our texturing, our coloring, our
right.
lighting. Yeah. Yep. So if I wanted to paint anything, I wanted to change anything and do all that kind of stuff, you can do this work, but it's not. There's just not a point in doing it in Blender, because Blender is not the engine you're going to use as the final product. You're not going to have access to all the shader nodes that you have in Blender in Unity. So there's no point in doing all that time to make it look pretty in Blender, because when you put it in Unity, that's all gone. None of that matters. So you have to do that lighting and that texturing and that work in Unity with either your standard Unity shaders or Poyomi shaders or things like that. Those are different, essentially programming modules that we can use to say, your hair is a material slot. It has this material. I am going to use the Poyomi shader to color and light and give reflection and metallics and all that stuff to that material slot with the shader.
Okay, gotcha. All right, yeah, that makes sense. That was like, there's definitely just there's a lot to your explanation, and I'll definitely have to like listen back. But like, it seems like you broke it down pretty well. Like I don't think I have anything else to ask, but other than, I guess why did you call your first Avi Bacchus? Where did that name come from? And we'll go with that.
So he's homie's ready to party. He's ready to drink.
Yeah.
Bacchus, the lord of the wine and party.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So very, very clear-cut allusion to Greek mythology. ish.
Yep.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, definitely makes sense.
Yeah, depending on Greek or Roman, it was either Bacchus or Dionysus, and I was like, Bacchus is way shorter.
True. I definitely got you there.
I could not imagine people out there in the lobbies being like, "Yo, did you see that new Dionysus drop? You got a Dionysus?" No, the Bacchus was way shorter, man. That one rolls off the tongue.
No,
better.
they would start to call it Dio.
Yeah. Hey, Dio!
Yeah.
Now all the JoJo memes are gonna come out of everywhere.
Exactly. That's what it would have turned into. It would have turned into a JoJo meme, which is also great. That would have been super amusing and just as much. But all right. So now that we've talked about like your creativeness and where that comes from, where that kind of where that has led you now, and obviously you'll be doing more of that in the future. That's really exciting. Obviously, like what you're doing is super cool. I wish that I could do what you do, and obviously I probably could if I give it enough time, but it's still very awesome to know someone who's put in the time and the work to get good, essentially, and essentially build something. Yeah, get good. And make it a reality. Now you have a little bit of an online business, and that's pretty cool. That's pretty great. And that I'm obviously you enjoy it too, which is even better. So we're gonna talk a little bit about, now that we've gone into the creative side of things, and we've people who are around, who people who've been watching all the way through, people who are still here. We're going to talk a little bit about the thing that we always talk about on the Sweet Talking podcast, your love life.
The love life.
Yeah. If that's cool with you.
Yeah. Absolutely. What do you want to know?
All right. Cool.
You want me to just schmeal it out, or you want to hit me with some specifics?
I will hit you with specifics for sure. So my first question for you is, I guess how would you categorize, how to ask this? I don't even know. Like, are you single? I guess that's a basic question.
That's a good one to start with. No, I am not single.
Okay, so
I'm definitely not single.
All right, cool. So, how do you categorize your relationship? I've talked to a number of people who've thought mainly about, they've mainly kind of leaned towards like monogamy or polygamy, whatever it may be. I guess how do you where do you fall?
In polyamory. In open polyamory.
Gotcha. All right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And so,
go ahead.
So I was gonna say in polyamory, because we can discuss that at depth. There's a lot to unpack and discuss with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Polyamory is really more communication and connections, and it's not for so many people. There are a ton of people out there that there are a lot of labels that will just be used to just be open, to just run around and have free reign kind of thing, and that is in no way, shape, or form how or what it is, right? It is very specifically talked about, agreed upon, comfort in bounds, within partners. These are the partners, everybody knows what somebody's doing and things like that, right? It's not a free reign, you're just running around wild doing whatever the hell you want kind of thing at all. That's not the point in any way, shape, or form.
Okay. Definitely good to make that clear for people who may be who may have a misconception about what that may be, because obviously people have their own thoughts about polyamory and what goes into that. So I guess what led you to fall into that category? What led you to do that? I'm assuming you tried monogamy at some point. But I guess what kind of led you into going in this direction?
Yeah, I think we're all obviously raised in monogamy. You know, everyone is raised under the ideology and path of monogamy. I think in time, it's kind of crazy to think that it's not to say that you won't only love one person in your whole life, right? Or that you can't only love one person in your whole life. But I also think it's kind of crazy to think that you're never going to have other connections with other people that are deep and meaningful throughout your life. There is a lot that goes into the trust and communication that's required to be in an open relationship with someone. But I think it's very, very fruitful and beneficial when you can have other experiences and when you can share experiences with more than the one person. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with monogamy. You know, monogamy is amazing. But there are some things about poly that destroy a lot of the problems monogamy has. Like I said, polyamory is not about just running off and doing whatever the hell you want. But here's the thing: there is what's a good example? Okay, a good example. I do have a crazy ex. I have a really crazy ex. I have an insanely crazy ex. Okay. Yeah. So this crazy ex came into the situation to basically try to break me and my partners up in this whole thing of, well, they're talking to me and they're cheating on you with me, and I can't tell you how much the laughter is about that. I'm like, nah, fam, we would have talked about it. Like, they would have known. Like this is not, that's a non-issue here, right? Like with polyamorous partners, communication is the absolute forefront and biggest thing in the world. But because of that communication, my polyamorous relationship and the skills that I have learned in communication with my relationships are far, far better than ever of what I had in my monogamous relationships, because you have to communicate, you have to be known, you have to listen, you have to hear, and you have to understand, and you both have to work to validate and work through each other's comforts and make sure both people feel validated, trusted, loved, and comfort. Right? You can't bottle things up. You can't not speak about it. You can't hold something back. You can't wonder, are they cheating? What are they doing? You have to have communication. And if the communication does not work, the trust will never work.
Right.
And so that being the forefront biggest requirement of polyamory makes the relationships, in my opinion, succeed so much better than any I ever had in the past. Because I didn't communicate like that in my past, with my past relationships. Polyamory is hard. There are a lot of challenges that come with polyamory. There are roadblocks you have to get past and things you have to learn. And if I'd say, okay, the top three, one, you're rewiring yourself from monogamy. Like I said, we're all raised in monogamy. You're rewiring yourself from that difference of, this is not monogamy. And that's okay. And you know what? If people hate on you for it, so be it. Fuck them. I don't care. The second biggest thing that comes with it, and that everyone has to deal with, and we all have to deal with, is jealousy. Because of our monogamous upbringing, because of we're raised and we're used to these very one-on-one partners. You are mine and I am yours, right? The jealousy aspect of other partners, or time shared, or time spent, or equality, the jealousy aspect is the second largest and biggest hurdle. And then, like I said, the absolute biggest thing of all of it is communication. Communication fixes all of those problems. Communication fixes your jealousy. Communication fixes your doubts. Communication fixes what's bothering you. You have to learn to trust. And as a guy, this is a big thing. As a guy, and I'm not trying to make generalizations, but many times as a guy, when we voice our opinions or when we voice our needs or when we voice things that hurt us, many times those things get used against us later.
Yeah.
And that happens both ways. That happens to women too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that, you know, toxic manipulation is a one-sided road here.
Yeah, of course
between
not.
yeah, exactly, right. But it's notoriously a terrible thing to have happen. So there's this huge thing that you have to learn how to do. You have to learn how to just sit down, say what hurt or why it hurt, and you have to understand two things. And the first thing is, you're not going to blow up on me, and you're not going to start a fight because I came to the table to explain something.
Yeah.
And the second thing is, you're not going to turn it on me and use it on me. That's really hard to get past for a lot of people, because a lot of people have been hurt. A lot of people have been very hurt in relationships. So bearing yourself and being open and laying that out is terrifying to some people. So you really have to get through that and get past that. And the only way to do it is you have to do it. You have to give a little trust. And you know what? If that person does blow up on you and that person does use it against you and things like that, well, there you go. You learned what you need to know.
Yeah.
Right? You need to back out. You need to work on something else. You need to work on those things. But you have to be able to say, you have done this thing, or you with this person, or this amount of time, or, you know, something like that, or this is making me uncomfortable, or I feel X, Y, or Z. And I have to be able to be open and explain that to you, and you have to be able to listen and understand. And then in turn, we have to both mutually work and agree to validate and make my comfort fine with whatever it is. And the same in return, and vice versa, right? And that goes for every single partner involved. And there are a lot of different dynamics out there. Sometimes the dynamics are, you know, that every partner involved is involved with every partner. Most of the time it's, you know, one person has, hey, I have this partner and I have this partner, and we're all friends and we all, you know each other, but this person has no romantic or involvement with the other, and they don't care. I'm just a mutual point of commonality, right? But you still have to stay in those communications and bounds of respect all the time,
right,
with each other.
Yeah, 100%. Like, a lot of what you're saying is very much applicable to any relationship. It doesn't even matter, like, if it's monogamous or polygamous. It doesn't even matter. Like, a lot of what you're saying those are just very much key points that every relationship requires. That trust, that ability to communicate, that ability to listen, and to know that they're going to be there for you and not try to hurt you with whatever it is that is going on. Like, that's just straight up, like, valid for any relationship.
Yeah, I mean, that's relationship.
Yeah, it's relationship 101.
Period.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like,
I'd say that polyamory pushed me to that because polyamory pushed me to that more because you have to talk about it, right? In monogamy, there's, you know, you can go to bed angry, nothing's gonna change tomorrow. But polyamory made me talk more because it was untested territory. It was uncharted territory. It was something you hadn't done before. You didn't know the playbook and you don't know the rules.
Right.
So you have to talk about them.
Right.
You have to write the playbook, and you have to establish the rules, and you have to establish the bounds. And so that makes you talk more, right?
Yes.
Unlike, most people who would just step into their next dating or the next talking phase with someone, there's a set of expectations, so to speak, right? There's an unwritten rule book already there. So assumptions lead to anger, and assumptions lead to argument and miscommunication. But But when you first step into poly, you're like, what the fuck what are we doing? How are we, is this allowed? Is that allowed? What are you doing? What am I doing? Are we gonna go over, is the other thing? And it just drives conversation. And that's, I learned those things through that conversation that I was not forced into having monogamously, I would say.
I see. So how do you balance on the time between various partners? Like how does one engage in relationships with multiple people when you have your own ambitions, you have things that you want to do, the time that you want to spend pursuing those things, obviously time for yourself. Obviously, I think we all need alone time just to kind of like decompress and be with our thoughts. How do you balance that time and effort between multiple partners? And obviously maintain a sense of communication and obviously setting standards with each partner, but still there's still a matter of time, like time management. So how do you handle that?
So time is really, really important and really hard sometimes. So here's one thing: everybody, when you get into a new relationship, it's the fireworks, it's the passion, it's the puppy dog love, it's the oh my god, shiny, it's amazing. How do you make sure that you make the other person feel like they're not the old toy on the shelf? Right. How do you make sure everyone feels equal? And so the thing really to me is scheduling time. And it's not to say that, you got to get on my calendar. That's not what I mean. But my point is that you very specifically make an effort to say, I want to have a day together. Let's have a day together. When do you want to have a day together? When are you off work? When is this going to work? Let's spend the day and have this day. And then that's communicated with your other partner. And they know, so they don't feel brushed off, they don't feel blown off, they know you're not ghosting them, you're doing something, you're out at the movies, you're and you're really just kind of coordinating and basically laying that out to say, we're going to spend this time together, and we're going to spend this time together, or sometimes all of us are going to spend time together and hang out, and that's perfectly fine. I will say that's been one of my biggest green flags and red flags in polyamory, is if the other partners are interested in and want your other partner's respect and trust, right? That is a huge indicator of someone coming in and saying, well, what does she think of this? I want to get to know her. Is she okay with me? Do I have her blessing? Can we be friends? That's a huge indicator versus somebody just being a partner with one person and not giving a shit about the other partner at all, right? That's a huge problem. That's a huge green flag versus red flag thing. So I've experienced both sides of that. And I will say generally it's more with males. Males tend to have a very hard time adjusting to, I don't own you and you're not mine, and I don't understand that. Yeah, I can see that. Right? Where I would say is women tend to kind of just go, oh, okay, we're sharing and we're going to talk about it and we're going to like coordination and then, I mean, jealousy's still there, but it's just the male let me whip it out and measure and have a pissing contest comes into it way more and becomes a challenge. I'm just saying it's more prominent as an issue on that side. But to really boil back to the question, it's just communication. It all comes back to communication. Is communication and coordinating and picking times and making sure everyone knows those things and saying, I'm spending this time with you, or hey, or we're going to spend tomorrow together, and we're going to have a day together, and we're going to watch movies, and we're going to game, and we're going to go out, we're going to go do stuff, and putting those things out there and everyone understanding makes them feel equal. It helps people feel equal when you're putting time into it and you're communicating what time you're putting into it. by saying, I want to spend time with you. When do we want to spend time together? What works really well? What's good for you? When can we do this? Makes you continue to feel appreciated and wanted and needed, and versus, you know, just spending time all with one partner, or we're not communicating that at all, and other partners have no idea of who's hanging out or who's getting time or who's around. So it makes it a lot easier when you are friends and you all communicate and you all talk and you just kind of share that time amongst yourselves.
Okay, I see. Do you ever feel I guess stretched, like between having to split your attention between that and your own ambitions and goals and your own alone time? Is that feeling of feeling stretched, not stressed, but stretched too thin, having to split up? Yeah.
So I will say it absolutely can and does happen, but I will say personally, I myself did not personally seek out or was open to the time commitment of other partners up until somewhat recently, because my last job had no work-life balance. I was commuting close to 3 hours a day in my car. I was spending 9 to 12 hours at work. I was working from home. I was working late at night. I was getting projects out. I did not have the time to give you.
Right.
I did not have the time to give to anyone else. Right. And
Yeah.
so that was a personal choice to say, this is not the time for me to look for other partners or other things. Right. And my work-life balance has changed drastically, and anything else I do now is remotely. And consulting, and it's easy, and I've cut out, I mean, that's 3 hours a day right there back immediately that I'm not commuting all the time because I'm just working remotely. So I do something and I'm done, and I turn around and I'm on Discord and, hey, how you doing, what's up? And it's that easy. But yeah, it's just, time can be rough, especially for extremely busy people. And I think the more you add to that, that's a very personally aware and very personally cognizant thing you need to relegate for yourself, right? Like you need yourself to be aware of how much time can you give to people, and if you can't give time to people, don't overcommit yourself, don't overburden yourself, because that's unfair to other people.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Yeah. That's but it's definitely quite a feat. It's quite a feat to well, how many partners do you have now, if you don't mind me asking?
Just two.
Two? Okay. And yeah, but like even just to have two is like to me that seems like such a feat. Like for me, I'm very.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. That's crazy. Like imagine.
Yeah.
Like I said one day. It was actually like one of the very first times both of my partners met to hang out and talk with each other. I don't remember what I said. I said something. I did something. I don't remember what the hell I said. And then one of them was like, "What the you son of," and then the other partner was like, "You what the fuck?" And I was like, "Fuck, I'm in trouble twice. This is not what I asked for." It's just, so yeah. I mean, sometimes. So yeah, it's you're doubling commitments. But the return of investment, right? You're sharing more experiences. You're I feel like you're enjoying so much more. And it's not to say that any one person can't be enough for anyone. Any partner I have ever had has always been enough, and they will always be enough for me, right? But it's you're getting to enjoy a lot of life by having a lot of freedom through communication, and enjoy different dynamics and different people meeting people.
So you are a big believer in just just enjoying life to the fullest and having that freedom to explore as many new experiences as possible within the span of existence that we have, that we are aware of at least.
Absolutely. Always. I will probably be partying until the day I fucking die. Work hard, play hard. Do everything as best as I possibly can, but at the same time, enjoy every possible facet of life. Climb that mountain, speak other languages, see different cultures, try everything twice before you hate it. You know, there's absolutely no reason to be closed off in some way, shape, or form to experiences. And this is a little morose or macabre, but it's also from the military too. With depression and some other, you know, very terrible topics, right? One of the reasons why I told myself I would never ever end it early is because I have brothers who did not come home. So someone has to live life for them. Someone has to do good every day and make life worth it because they don't get to, because they didn't come home. And so that there was a decision point, and there was a moment where I was really close and I was really low, and I made that decision point. And that decision point was, I will never, ever, ever do that because I have to live life because they don't get to. And so that changed life drastically 180 a lot into, I must do all the things. I must see all the things. I must try all the things. I must enjoy all the things and do everything I can. And then there's, you know, the other side of it of, you know, I got to be a badass motherfucker while I do it, and I better do it right. I can't be half cheeking anything with a thick username. You got to do it all. You got to do it right, you know?
Yeah.
And so.
True enough. So I have a couple more questions for you. Where do you see yourself in, I had another question. I had another fucking question for you. Shit. So, where would you want to, where do you see yourself in, where would you like to be in 2 years? 2 years from now, where would you like to be? That wasn't my question, but.
So, I have we can go with it. I have a goal by the end of this year. And I have a goal by the end of next year, and I have a 5-year goal, and that 5-year goal is really more about financial freedom and work investment more than anything else. So the goal by the end of this year for me is to be completely debt free, except for just what's left of my mortgage, right? When you combine that with salary plus, you know, side things and making avatars and doing consulting or doing bug bounties and hacking and the whole goal there is finish off debt. The whole second part is establish multiple revenues, multiple streams of revenue. And then the third part of that is establish investment to become passive revenue. So then you look at year 4 and you look at year 5 to the point where, you know, hybrid and both passive revenues outweigh active revenues. That means you get to quit work.
Yeah.
That means you get to just, that means you get to quit work. That means you get to just do your passions.
Yeah.
That means you get to wake up and just make avatars, and you get to wake up and just hack a website and do whatever you want to do. And you don't have to deal with the office, quote unquote. And that also means you can go anywhere. That means, you know, next week you can go to Hawaii, or, you know, next month you can go to Japan, and you don't have to give a shit. You don't have to file for PTO for time off, or, you know, do whatever you want. So really one of the biggest things, and I so wish I had really approached life like this younger. You know, in my 20s, this is always one of those things where it's like, had I known when I was 22 or 25.
Yeah.
But it's not about the whole I'm trying to be financially smart and I want to be set up for retirement. The whole point is I don't want to be 50 years old or 60 years old or 70 years old working. I want to live my life while I can still move. I want to live while my knees still work. You know, I want to go and I want to enjoy life while I am still physically and mentally capable of doing so. And I don't want to spend the entirety of it in a corporate office. So this whole drive and this whole push to do all these things financially and with businesses and investments and things like that is not about the love of work. It's about the love of the idea of freedom and not having to do that crap. Not in the indentured corporate servitude forever until you're, 65, and then you can finally collect on your pension and your 401k.
Yeah. I think that's a great strategy. That's a great perspective and a great approach to take towards one's life. I know of all those pursuits. Those are things that I've pursued on my own. I too have sought to become debt free, and actually I have become debt free. It took me a long time to do it, but I actually did manage to do it. So I definitely have the same kind of ideas and mindsets of, understanding like what could be a source of passive income for me, and it's really just kind of, I think this is definitely something that everyone should aspire towards. They should aspire towards that sense of freedom, that sense of independence and autonomy, to not be locked down to any one job, to be able to go and do all the things that you'd ever want to do, so that you can actually live life. Because I think everyone deserves that. But I do think that though I think everyone deserves it, I do think that people should earn it. It should be something that they've earned and they've worked towards, and not just something that's handed to them simply on the basis of technology improving to such a degree that they can be like, they will just be given money by the government to just live, essentially. But that's just my perspective on it. But I do think that things like freedom, I think it's great that we have what we have in terms of like where we live, the country that you and I live in. But to have financial freedom, I definitely think that's the direction that you have, and the thoughts that you have about it is 100% where my head is as well, and I think everyone else's should be as well. So I did remember my last question for you, and it's a pretty easy question, I would say. I think it's a pretty easy question. If someone were, yeah, so if someone were wanted to get to know you, if someone like saw you at like a rave or something, and they'd never met you before, and they saw you from like across the room or whatever, what would you say would be the best way for them to approach getting to know you, to approach you in general, and just for someone who would like to get to know you better, like as I've gotten to know you, what would you suggest their approach should be to have the greatest success?
Well, I know as soon as I say this, it's going to happen more and worse, but it's already happened so many times over and over and over. I can tell you the one thing to not do. And the one thing to not do is to sing "I'm Blue Dabba Dee Dabba Die" when you first meet me. Because that's happened to me many goddamn times. It's unreal. It's unreal how that is the go-to icebreaker when people come up to me, because it has happened so many times. I'm like, homie, seriously. I know you thought it was funny, but and I know as soon as I say that, I know it's going to happen to me like so much more now from everyone who just watched me say that. But and really, in all honesty, it's just saying hi. It's just chatting, just talking for a minute. I, especially when I'm hanging out, and being social and in the homie lobbies and chilling at the raves or anything like that, it's totally just talk to me at almost about anything. You can talk about the music that's playing, the DJ who's around, or do I know people, or even ask me questions. Hell, where's the resync button? Or are you a newbie? Do you not know something about VR? Anything. Just the act of opening conversation, I will talk. I pretty much always do. You know, I think at the raves, the easiest greeting is cheers, obviously. That's the one we start with the most, right?
Yeah, that is the universal hello. Yeah.
That is the universal hello.
Yeah.
In the VR rave community. But yeah. Actually, one of them, I think it should still say it. Yeah, it's been in my bio forever. Like one of the lines in my bio is "Ask me about my horns," and sometimes people will actually ask me about my horns, and then it starts a conversation of I made these horns, and then we talk about VR stuff. You know.
Cool. Yeah, that definitely works. So I do have I'll ask this last question as well. So, what is your favorite music genre, and why do you like it so much?
Oh, the pain! You're making me choose. The pain.
What's your most listened to?
There are two. Yeah. I'll say there are two more predominantly than anything else. And those two would be metal or EDM. And I truly do use both of them as umbrella terms because they are. You know, within EDM, you could talk about trance or wave or rhythm or dub or trance or psych, or you know, you can go down the rabbit hole forever, right? The EDM is a good umbrella term that covers it, and the same with metal, because it really does have just as many crazy genres and niches to it. But those are the two most predominant things that I listen to all the time, constantly. It is metal and EDM. They both have different feelings, different meanings, different moments. I am one of those people that I have playlists for emotions and for times. I have playlists for times, and this set of 50 songs really remind me of this span of 2 to 3 years. Or I have playlists that, gym playlists or angry playlists or sad playlists or happy playlists or party playlists, or even like one thing that really happens a lot is I'll hear one song. I hear one song and I'm like, oh my God, I love this song. I love the feeling of this song. And I've listened to this song 10 times now. I will build an entire playlist trying to chase that same feeling, that same vibe, that same sound, that same feeling that I get out of it, the same emotion, charged feeling from that one song. I will strive to make a playlist of 20 other songs as similar to that same feeling as I can. So I do listen to everything except for country. I'm sorry, homies, but you can miss me with the country.
I feel like most people say that. But that's usually the one thing that people say.
But you can hit me with pretty much anything. You can hit me with pretty much anything else, and I can enjoy it or discuss it to some extent. But yeah, EDM and metal are always the constant go-tos.
Nice. And this is the final question. So, what if Bacchus could have a theme song? What would his theme song be?
Ooh. Oh damn. Catalyst by Johns. I don't know. I'm throwing out something that feels heavy, fast, hard, and fun. Catalyst by Johns.
Okay. And your theme song?
Ooh. My theme song. Oh, that's so rough. That was A Crazy Game of Poker by OAR.
Interesting. Okay. Wow. That's a mouthful of a...
That's an 8-minute long song, so brace yourself if you go look that one up.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. All right. So, yeah, this has been great. This has been fantastic. Being able to sit down with you, Dunny, has been like such a fucking pleasure. Like, for real. Like, it's... I knew there was so much to what was going on up here with you, and I wanted to know. I wanted to know. I'm glad that I could finally like pick your brain and truly understand the breadth of knowledge and insight that you have about various topics. It's it's been so great to just be able to talk with you and just get a better perspective of what drives you, what motivates you, what has impacted you over your life, you know, your time in the military, how you were motivated to get into cybersecurity, how that led into, you know, VRChat and into what you're doing now, like avatar creation and asset production. It's so cool to just to have a better picture of Dunny, the actual guy, and not simply Dunny the party animal, which is what most people see. So I really I really hope that people who know you had such an opportunity and enjoyed this conversation as much as I did, because like I knew already there was more to you than simply, you know, getting blasted and enjoying and just vibing with the music. There was so much more to you. Yeah.
We go again.
Yeah.
We go again.
Yeah.
We're getting Blue Demon blasted, boys. Blue Demon blasted. It's the only way to do Fridays.
Yeah. So if someone wanted to find you, where would you recommend that people reach out to you if they wanted to find you, the things that you do and everything like that?
So here on the stream, I mean, if you look me up, if you look at my Twitch account, there should be the link tree there. And also on my Twitter has the link tree, but that essentially has, you know, a link to my community server Discord. It has a link to the avatar and asset shop, you know, and obviously links to Twitter. I don't stream, so you'll pretty much never see me stream or do anything like that. So don't bother looking for much content on Twitch or YouTube or anything like that. Really, the only thing that exists there is just a link tree to other stuff. But as far as where are you actually going to find me? Friday nights, you'll find me hanging out in homie lobbies with people and a lot of VR gang crew and a lot of the Undergarden and a lot of those friends and stuff. On Saturday nights, you'll usually see me at the Saturday Raves and Red Sets, or sometimes some VRC After Dark events like Sinister Saturday. And any other given day of the week, it's usually little homie hangouts, you know, some chill movie times and stuff like that. But yeah, you can definitely find me through there and in a lot of the Discord communities, and through my link tree, you can find mine and my server and where I'm usually at.
All right. Very, very cool. And if you wanted to find me, where I'm located, if you do not know, you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Nepherti, but that's with 2 eyes. Obviously, if you're watching right now, obviously you're already there, so congrats. You can also find me on Twitter at Nepherti, which also has 2 eyes, and also on YouTube, which you can also find me. That's where all of my VODs are located. That's where you'll be able to find past episodes of the podcast, and it's Nepherti with just 1 eye on YouTube. So that's where you can find me. And of course, there's also the Sweet Talking podcast, where you can find information about updates about guests. There's also that Twitter that you can find. And lastly, there's also, you know, my personal Patreon, patreon.com/Nepherti. You can check that out if that's something you're interested in, and if you're enjoying my content and what I'm doing, that is definitely another place where you can find me. And if you use VRChat or you're on Discord, could be a really quick way to get some one-on-one time with me, since I'm very, very hard to reach. Again, I applaud Dunny for being as versatile as he is, because again, like I spend a lot of alone time. I am always busy working on stuff, and it is difficult to find time to do anything let alone with like 2 partners, let alone with just 1. So I definitely like applaud you for experiencing life, enjoying life, and having those experiences, and still doing like really kick-ass things in the process. So honestly, all the respect to you, Dunny.
The truth is, I'm just tired. I do too much shit all the time.
It's like I'm tired all the time.
That's my secret, Captain. I'm always tired.
Yeah.
I'm always doing too much.
Yeah. And instead of being always angry like the Hulk, you're just always tired. Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much again, Dunny. It's been so awesome. I hope those of you who tuned in enjoyed our time with Dunny. Hopefully you learned something. If you did enjoy tonight's podcast, please leave a like or a comment. Please be sure to support what I'm doing. If you loved learning about this very talented dude, leave a comment. If something resonated with you, I'd really like to hear about what this podcast did for you, if anything at all. And subscribe if you want to. I'd really appreciate that. But otherwise, that's all that I have for you tonight. And again, thank you so much, Dunny, for joining me. And until next time, you guys, I certainly hope that you will tune in for future episodes of the Sweet Talking Podcast. Thank you so much for supporting me. And I will look forward to hopefully bringing another guest for you to enjoy and learn more about the awesome people that exist in VRC, and obviously fostering that human connection that I think many of us are missing in this day and age. So once again, thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.
Deuces. That said, a little quick, I don't know, 90 seconds condensed background into all of it and the history of it, more so whenever my tracking comes back.
Woo!
Nope. Yo. My tracking yeeted.
Yeah, you got yeeted.
So